彼の残した言葉の中にもあるんですが、いい写真を撮るための最初の条件、これはカメラを持っていることだと。彼が一番思考していたのは、多くの人にいかに写真を撮ってもらうか。
1960年代に前谷さんというオリンパスの技術者がいましてね。
カメラが当時はまだ高級品なので、前谷さんをはじめとする開発の方々が多くの人に使ってもらうにはどうしたらいいかって考えた中で、カメラ自体をもっと安く作りたい。
当時6000円で作れないかっていうふうにできたカメラです。
そして当時高かったフィルム代、現像代を少しでも負担を減らしたい。そうしたらハーフサイズのカメラを作ろう。そうすると倍撮れるのですごく経済的です。
で 35mm カメラの24枚だと48枚撮れます。それが非常に画期的だということで、使われた。ペンが出た時にオリンパスを持って家族写真を撮ったりなんかする人が非常にいましたですね。
主にプロを中心として使う機材が変わってきていた。なるべくいいものを作ろうと各社していて、どうしても大きくなってしまっている。その中で前谷はやっぱりプロが本当に求めるものってそういうことなのかっていうことに疑問を感じて、その中で生まれたのが OM1 だと考えています。
結局彼がこれ集大成なんですね。やっぱりかなり命が吹き込まれたカメラではないかなっていうふうに僕は思います。
When I got into the newspaper business, it was just coming off the time when 2.25 was kind of the equipment preferred. The guy that hired me came from the speed graphic day, the 4x5. As technology progressed, all of a sudden it was accepted that 35mm was great for newspaper work. It's not as physically imposing as a larger camera. The more I become invisible, the more I can become part of the scene, the more the photographic opportunities present themselves to me. The camera, it becomes a productive tool. It's there for a purpose. Maitani realized that, and that drove the original design of the OM. When you put it in your hand, everything was where you wanted it to be. The aperture's right here. My two front fingers take care of that. Other fingers fall back to the shutter speed. It's an enabler, it's a conduit, not an interference between you and what's happening.
1996年にオリンパスは最初の民生品のデジタルカメラを出したわけですけれども、フィルムであろうとデジタルであろうとないものを作るというのは全社共通で、今でも一番ベーシックなところに流れているのではないかなと考えます。
デザインを検討するときにスケッチを書いて最初検討して、その次にですね 3D データを入れてからこのようなラフな削りのモデルを作ります。でこれをベースにボタンの位置が適切であるかとか、あるいはグリップ性能はこれでいいかとかっていうのを検討していくんですけれども、我々が一番に考えていることはやはり使われる方、ユーザーのことです。
There's certainly an emotional connection with your camera. As soon as you pick it up, you know, you have a feeling. It's the design, it's how it looks, and it's how it's going to support you in achieving the image that you want to capture. Size and portability and mobility in photography is a message that we've been talking about for decades. The philosophy of the Olympus cameras is being able to shoot everywhere. We had a photographer go to Antarctica, and obviously you've got crazy low temperatures there. We created technology that enables them to do that. If you were that customer, what would the end solution be that you would want? It's important to always be thinking about what do people need, what are they going to need, what's the future going to be, and to aspire to deliver that.
災害に遭われた方が取り戻したいものの最も大事なものの一つがやっぱ写真なんですね。それって単なる現像された紙ではなくて、その当時の家族の思い出がやはりそこに残っているってみんなが思うので、思い出を取り戻したいという気持ちがあると思うんです。つまり写真にはそれだけの力があると 思っています。
I've got a photograph of our son. I think he was a year old. It's got the catch light in his eyes. Wonderful moment of him getting ready to tap the glass. It's not a great photograph, but it's a great moment. Wow, look at that. I remember that. Oh, look at this. You know, raising your kids, the pains and the struggle and the exhaustion and the joys and all these things that occur. What a wonderful confirmation it is of you as a human. This is who we are and who we were.
今でもそのものを作るにあたってはお客様の声というのをすごく大事にしています。マイタリが残した言葉の一つに、我々はカメラを開発提供しているんではなくて、カメラを通じて人々が幸せになることを提供しているんだっていう言葉があります。ないから作る、その精神というのを日々実現しようと、これこそが社会に対するオリンパスの役割だと思っています。
Good day, everybody, and welcome back to my coffee time with myself, Jimmy Cheng. Hope that all of you guys have one of these ready, and I have a black one today, so I'm not going to add any cream or milk into my coffee because I need to stay awake. I've been working flat out for the last few days and trying to catch up with a lot of the work that basically been delayed since our third lockdown at the beginning of this year. So I'm still catching up, to be honest, and I have no breathing space whatsoever. But luckily, my kids are now back to school, so that means that I have a little bit of daytime, so I can catch up some of the work that I previously missed. So it's a little bit of a help, but I'm still trying to catch up and also trying to recover from a lot of things as well, because you know how lockdown has impacted so many people in terms of their way of life and also how they spend the time for their personal stuff as well as work as well. So welcome, a big welcome, and you've seen the title. It's going to be an interesting discussion today, but it's not. I would say it's not uncommon for me to say this sort of thing because I've just said it so many times already. However, there are still people trying to argue about the size issue, so which I'm trying to maybe utilize this stream as to not only just to clarify things, but also trying to reassure you sizing is a matter of preference, and also it will enable you to do a lot more than you might actually think. So let's jump into say hi to a lot of you guys. I know that quite a few of you already here quite early, and let's say hi then. And I'm gonna go right from the top, and then we're gonna go through every single one of you guys. So hello Ashley, and will this stream available after the live stream? Right. Yes, for those who are new to my live stream, yes, all the stream is actually saved within the YouTube. It's actually under the Coffee Time with Jimmy Cheng playlist. So if you go to my homepage, you actually see that playlist. If you scroll down a little bit, you actually see the playlist of Coffee Time with Jimmy Cheng, and you actually see all the previous streams there as well. So there's quite a lot to catch up, of course, and I've been streaming for months now, and each one of them can be a little bit lengthy, but you know, usually the bulk of the juice is right at the beginning of the first half an hour to 45 minutes, and after that is more like Q&A. I'm just responding to a lot of your messages. So yes, they are all saved, so you don't have to worry about it. If you do miss it, you can always come back and watch the whole thing. So that's okay. And let me just go to the next one, and I know Victor already actually answered it already. So hello Victor, and Vincent, hello Vincent, and Marsha, hello Marsha, how are you? And I can see that you're in Florida with some sunny weather. Oh my goodness me. London hasn't been great today. It's very cloudy, very dull, very boring. So it's the typical kind of British weather that we have here. So well, we're where we are. So like I can't really change that. But we did have some sun. I think 2 or 3 days ago. I did manage to capture some of those in videos and some photos as well. So hopefully I can show you guys in my future videos of those results that I've done. I can't really leak too much out at the moment. I've been testing a lot of lenses. I have been testing a lot of equipment actually. It's gonna be interesting. You know, like I said in the last couple of streams, and this channel is expanding, so I will no longer I will continue to cover what I can cover with Olympus stuff, of course, but as a creator, as a photographer and filmmaker myself, I use a lot more than just the camera and lenses, so I'm trying to cover all those elements into as well. So like I already done a lot of the software like DxO and Lightroom and so forth, and I'm gonna add the bags. You've seen some bags videos already. Supports like tripods and things, lighting, monitors, all the other stuff that I basically use for my jobs. Some of them may be interesting to you, some of them may not, and depending on what sort of things you do mostly. But I'll try to make them relevant so that hopefully you can enjoy a little bit of the content, even though it may not be for you. But you never know. You never know when you expand your or when you get more experience, when you're starting to move into the commercial world, you may need some of this gear from time to time. So hopefully I'll bring all this content together and you guys will enjoy that as well. So let's continue to say hi there. And Andre Becker, hello there. And Jalapeno Papa, hello. And Paul Summer from Hampshire. David Black, hello there from Kentucky. How's the weather there? Stephen Long, John, hello John from Manchester. How's Manchester? Is it same as same as London? It's very dull at the moment here. Christian, hello Christian. Systema Nature, of course, yes, cloudy here today as well. So Marco, hello Marco. And looks like it's cold in my office. It was really cold. It was really cold. And so because I don't usually work in my office here and during the day, and I filmed inside the kitchen. Just I love the very nice wide table, as you've seen in my video already. So I don't have that table in here. I just prefer that, and it suits me cozy. I can actually grab any food and coffee as and when I want. It's an on-demand thing, right? So I just don't come to my office that often. So it's only when it's streaming or when I have to do some work, if I need some really quiet time, then I come to my office and do things here. But in the summer, I'll work over here a lot more because it will be a lot warmer. Otherwise, I have to turn on the heater here all the time. And Kirk, hello Kirk, how are you? And We Wet as well, hello We Wet. Mark, Connor, hello. Jason, Lord Vader, hello Lord Vader. And Ryan, hello. Claudio, Raymondi, and Victor. Yeah, Victor's already here. Yes, of course. David, Range Writer, Annette. Oh, hello Annette from South Africa. Hey, thank you. I'd love to introduce before you started. Christopher from Germany, John and Nat. Hello, Nat. Hey, nice to see you here, bro. Cool stuff. Right, fantastic. So we get started about today's let's say a couple of more. Leon and Terry. Hello there. So I know you're starting asking questions. Please leave your comments or anything you want to ask in the comment sections here, and I'll read them after the presentation, of course, about today's topic about sizing. So why would I want to choose this topic about downsizing? And once again, this is something that I trying to reply to some messages that people left me over from my last few videos. First of all, it's not about brand. So for people who may not understand me, and just trying to presume that I am a diehard fanboys and kind of thing, like just trying to basically say there's nothing else out there apart from Olympus. Even though I'm an Olympus ambassador, I'm a Micro Four Third user, I'm not that type of person. I'm a professional. I use any tools to make my living and to create my work. But it just so happened that I use Olympus, and this is my preference, and I prefer that. The way that I convey my messages over to my audience and my people, my friends, is through my work. So so people see my work, and if they like it, they ask what sort of camera you use, and I will tell them it's Olympus. I don't actively sell gear to these people here, and even Olympus told me that my job as an ambassador isn't really about selling, because they have the sales team and marketing team to do that sort of thing. For me, it's really about showcasing what you can achieve with the gear, and that's it. So this is exactly what I've done, and that's what I've been doing, and I don't really usually say that anything kind of negative to any other brands. I accept everybody as a photographer. I accept anyone who's in the creative industry. I don't discriminate anybody. So get that cleared and get it out of the way. So for those people who left me messages and said, I can do this and that with my system, you know, whatever brand it is. And I've seen, seriously, I would say last month, I've got about at least a dozen, maybe 2 dozens of these messages flying around in my mailbox, and also my YouTube videos, of course. They've been saying, oh yeah, you know, these days, you know, everything is going smaller, and your Micro Four Third is just no longer the smallest system in the world. Well, I don't know where you get that from, but first of all, and it is still one of the smaller system. I mean, you may be right, it's not the smaller system, because of course there are smaller cameras, right? You know, there are smaller cameras out there. You know, if you really go for the tiny thing, of course there are smaller cameras. Even my son and my daughter's toy cameras are smaller than my Micro Four Third, if you kind of count it into cameras as well, which they are technically. And so it's just kind of, you know, very they make a fundamental presumptions of everything that I'm trying to say through my channel. And secondly, a lot of people always think that you know, kind of like the opposite now, and they say, oh, you know, if you are a pro, yeah, you need to upsize, you need to upgrade, right? This is what caused me to make today's stream, right? Upsizing to a bigger format, not necessarily upgrading yourself. No, you know, let me tell you a little bit more about that. I came from, for people who know me, you heard this story before. I came from a full frame background. I shot full frame for over 12 years, and I knew all the benefits and disadvantages of either systems, right? And downsizing is definitely not downgrading. And this is a fact. For people who may not understand that word, you know, you really have to kind of reassess what you just said, and trying to understand yourself, what you do as a photographer. What exactly do you get out of the camera? Yeah, you have to understand everything there. You know, like otherwise, you know, it's just more like a I wouldn't even say fanboy talks anymore. It's more like a format war in a way. You know, like yeah, it's basically full frame versus crop sensor, you know, kind of thing. It's a war, you know, between these two, these kind of crop, yeah, whether it's APS-C or Micro Four Third or a full frame. It isn't a war. It's just different formats, and I don't know why people are so adamant and you know, about the format is so important for these people here. I mean, this is beyond me. This is totally beyond me. And guess what? I just received a message my wife just sent me. She may have left the fire on in the kitchen. Right, forgive me, I need to check that, obviously, otherwise my house will be on fire. And so I need to check whether the fire is turned off in my kitchen. I'll be back in 2 minutes. So this is no good, because my wife actually went to pick up my kids, so there's no one in the house at the moment, so I will have to check that. So I've got my key here now. I need to definitely need to check the kitchen. So I'll be back in about a minute. So let me play you my video again, and so just to give you some break time, grab a coffee, go to toilet break or whatever you need to do. So sorry about that, I apologize for the disruptions here, but I will come back in a moment. I'm back just in time for the video finish. Okay, well, lucky the fire was turned off, so she was just a bit obviously over worried about what might happen, and because you know, from my wife usually walk to school and pick them up, so it's about, you know, round trip is about 30-40 minutes, so you know, we just don't want anything bad to happen, right? Okay. Sorry about that, apologize for the delay, and let's get back to the conversation. So downsizing isn't downgrading, and it really struck me when people said the sort of comments and left it on my mailbox, to say that micro-foot really is reaching the limit, really isn't good enough. You need to upgrade. They keep asking me to upgrade, and I really don't understand. Like how they could kind of see that I need the upgrade. That's the first thing, because I look, I'm a professional. I've been working in the field for like 16 years. I know when I need to upgrade. And as a matter of fact, you might have heard me saying this before. I have worked with Canon for 10 years and then Leica for 2 years. Then the remaining 4.5 years is with Olympus, right? Obviously, I went through the Canon full frame system from the 5D Mark 1, the Mark 2, Mark 3, and so I was upgrading from 12 to 22 to 24 megapixels in terms of resolutions, and Leica was also 24 megapixels. Then I went back down to 20 with Olympus. The thing is, I don't need to upgrade unless my camera breaks or unless I see an advantage that would make me, as a business, that would make me more money, and in terms of upgrading. So I'll also give you an example as well. And obviously professional is very different to amateur. I can totally understand a lot of people who may be a little bit of a tech nerd, in the camera world, who likes to test out a lot of new features, dynamic range, pixel peeping, whatnot. Just anything you can think of about this technological stuff, specifications, numbers. But as a professional, as a businessman, I don't care about those stuff that much, to be honest. As long as I can capture images that I need and I want, and that's more than sufficient. And to be frank, like I mentioned to you guys so many times already, since about 2015, 2014, any camera that you pick up on the market, regardless of brand, regardless of anything, they are more than capable of producing brilliant results. I could even go as far as like picking up the original Canon 5D, the very first generation. That's 2005 camera. That's 16 years. Yeah, that's kind of the time when I moved to Pro, and even that camera, 12 megapixel, in the right hands, you can produce some fantastic results. That's no different whatsoever. At the end of the day, they are photographs. It really depending on the photographer, how they see the light, how they process the photo, how they compose the images, how they execute the shot. For people who say that, oh man, your camera max out at ISO 1600, 3200, 6400. Look at the latest generations now. They can shoot 500,000 ISO. They can easily shoot really clean images and 12,800. Yes, I can totally appreciate these high ISO performances, the cleaner images, whatever. But the thing is, I know myself as a photographer. I said it to you guys a few times already. You have to understand your needs and how you shoot, right? If you're constantly shooting at ISO 6400 and above, yeah, I'm talking about how you set your cameras and whether. I don't really care what sort of thing you shoot, and but if you're constantly shooting at 6400 and above, I can totally appreciate and totally understand that you need to use a camera that is capable of giving you better performance in lower light situation. That's okay. I can get that. If you need that sort of thing, that's totally fine. However, if you don't shoot like constantly in those kind of settings, if you quite easy. If you've got Lightroom, yeah, if you just click on the metadata just to filter out your entire library, so to speak, and find out how many images you actually shot, with those settings, basically 6400 and above, trying to filter them out and see the percentage there. If your percentage is less than 5%, yeah, then what's the point of getting cameras that are capable of doing that sort of thing in the first place? That's one thing. And secondly, assess what sort of thing you do mostly. For people who usually use high ISO settings, are kind of in a way the the wildlife photographers and also sports stadium photographers. I'm not saying that Olympus is not great at that, but I'm just saying that, you know, there are better systems for that sort of thing, because they do need to freeze frames. Yeah, so they would push the ISO to 6400 or even 12,800 and use 1,000th of a second to capture people, you know, flicking in the air, whatever, you know, and the cheetah was running at night kind of thing. So these are specific niche necessary thing that they need, the photographer needs to capture those photographs, which is totally okay. But for majority of us here, for majority of the people out there, what do you shoot? What do you actually shoot? You know, oh, I shoot portrait, and I shoot and travel landscape. Oh, I do this and that. Just look at your requirements and understand, and you know, exactly what you need, you know, in any situation, at any time, at any given time, and you'll find out that, you know, I'm very sure you find out that most camera would be more than enough for that. So now come back to the upsizing, upgrading thing. You know, this is all related, right? You know, simply because everybody say that full frame or bigger format will have better low light performance than the Micro Four Thirds, which is, you know, I told you many times, it is true, because you know, you can't defy physics. Bigger sensors is always going to be a little bit better because they have better photo sight, they can absorb more light, so they can you know, do more in a lower light situation, or you can push the ISO further compared to Micro Four Thirds. But it doesn't mean Micro Four Thirds is not capable. Definitely not. You know, and for people who keep arguing me back, you know, and this is exactly what I just said to you about assessing your situation. Yeah? If, you know, for me, I don't seriously, I don't actually shoot that kind of ISO a lot. And that means in terms of low, I mean, I'm coming to you as a wedding photographer, and also I shoot a lot of documentary stuff, which I am in a lot of dark situations quite often as well. And I just think that if you think, okay, I need to push the ISO, but you're neglecting the fact that, you know, you can also shoot brighter lenses like 1.2 f1 lenses these days, and you can neglect a lot of these high ISO setting by default. I mean, I shoot really dark churches, you know, a lot of the time. Very dark hotels, you know, in reception areas. I mean, quite rarely I will shoot at 6400, and that's a fact. I mean, I can even show you the metadata from my Lightroom. The only time I really shoot at 6400 or even 3200 is really when they maybe do some like, you know, kind of like a what do you call those little firework thing, the sparkly thing, then create a little tunnel, then bride and grooms can kind of walk through it. I mean, in those situations I push the ISO because I need to freeze frame, and not only that, I need to shoot wide as well. So in those situations, I'll push the ISO to, you know, 6400. I do use 6400 in those cases, and CAF as well at the same time. So I would use those kind of situations, but that's only limited. I see even a lot of the first dance photos, because I do use artificial light a lot to pump some effect into the scene, and by boosting the ISO will get me the ambience as well as the actual lighting effect that I created. So I could use those scenarios, but even there, I'm only using 1600 and maximum 3200 for that type of shots. So in most cases, in my experience, I rarely go past that level there. And as of, you know, last year, you know, we have DxO as well, which is quite good at low light performance, and you know, you can actually denoise those things quite well. And I mean, I'm not going to repeat that now. DxO is kind of transformed the whole low light situation on Micro Four Thirds cameras, especially because it just kind of ridiculous how they can actually process low light noisy photos and bring them back to life. And after I've done a review on it, I know some of you guys already tried the software, and quite a few you also email me with some of the images that you shot with some older cameras, and at 1600 3200, which is very noisy back then, but they revived those photos and kind of bring them back to life, and they were actually quite shocked how much detail they actually brought back from the DxO software. So that's one thing. So about sensor performance is not really, to me, a relevant point about upgrading or upsizing anyway, because I assess my need. But more importantly about the sizes wise is that, right, then about mobility. And this is kind of obvious in a way that people kind of move to Micro Four Thirds in the first place is about mobility. And I know, many of you can argue that a lot of the full frame or larger format cameras are now come to a point that they are almost equal in terms of size compared to Micro Four Thirds bodies. But again, even so, the lenses aren't, they aren't smaller. I know Canon is kind of doing some crazy tricks at the moment. They are making some smaller lenses like the latest 70 to 200 f4 L lens, which is actually quite small. I have to be quite frank here. I do kind of shock how small it is, and for a full frame lens. But there are also kind of limited lenses out there that are really kind of that small, to be quite frank. And for those who are really looking forward to using pro optics and larger apertures, to be quite frank, if full frame guys using f4, f5, 6, f8, f11 lenses, which Canon makes all these lenses now, then you are not really getting much more than using a smaller format, which I'm kind of coming into in a little bit later. But let's talk a little bit about size first. But so these kind of physics things you can't ignore, because you need the actual glass element to be large enough to cover the entire sensor. So the size of the lenses have to be certain size to be able to adapt to full frame sensors cameras. So in that case, no matter how small your camera body is, the lenses are always going to be bigger, more expensive, and heavier. So there is no argument there. So even though the bodies may be small enough to compare themselves with the Micro Four Thirds, but lenses aren't. So in terms of system weight, let's say if you go out to a trip or hiking or whatever, you will find yourself carrying maybe 2 or 3 lenses and a body, right? This is quite common. You might have a standard zoom 24-70 in full frame, or in Micro Four Thirds it will be the 12 to 40. Then you may have a couple of primes there. You may have an ultra wide zoom like the 7 to 14 2.8 Pro for Micro Four Thirds, or in the full frame world will be the 14 to 35 or the Canon 16 to 35. These kind of range, right? But once you put a few lenses into your bag, you would be able to tell exactly why a lot of people go for the smaller system. And also, with that note about landscape photography, tracking and travel photography, in that genre of photography, which majority of you guys do, is that how often do you need, and I mean say need, yeah? How many of you actually need shooting wide open to create shallow depth of field? And which is not a lot of the times. A lot of people who capture landscape, especially landscape, you stop down the lens. Even a lot of you guys who think that I still need to photo stack my photos because it hasn't got enough depth of field. So in that case, the argument of having a shallow depth of field in a larger format doesn't really even come into it in landscape photography. I can totally understand dynamic range and could have been perhaps this and that about the actual bit depth, the color depth, about tonalities and tonal range and all this technical stuff. I appreciate that, but in reality, once you print, I'm talking about print, yeah, as a professional, as a high-end photographer, that you want to appreciate your work hanging on the wall, not on the screen. and really there's no argument there. And secondly, also about the medium, which I also talked about, where do you display your images? Do you just simply share them on social media like Facebook and other forums, and that's it? These sort of social media platform will compress all your images. So like your 14-bit photographs, it doesn't even come into it. They're all displayed as 8-bit, and it's really kind of, you have to think about exactly what you're getting your camera for. A lot of you guys might think that, oh, full frame will give you this and that. Yes, on paper they look great, and don't get me wrong. As a pro who work in the industry for so long, I've seen a lot of different camera, different specs. I work with a lot of editors who have medium format Fujifilms, so like all these like really juicy cameras out there, Hasselblad, you name it. I have other professional photographer friends who use other systems. We all kind of every now and then have some like kind of techie talks as well. We talked about things a lot, but we never really bash each other. We kind of just appreciate what each other's can bring on the table, right? So we look at each other's cameras and look at the specs and kind of thing, but we never really say, yeah, your one is definitely worse than this and that. But we look at it in a way that what would that system best for certain type of scenarios, right? Like I said, there's no bad cameras out there. Everything is good now. You know, if you got high-res camera, if you need those pixels, you know, yeah, you know, the high-res camera's right there. But if you need something that's tougher, you know, like more reliable, like faster focusing, blah, 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 you know, oh, you got that camera there. And if you want mobilities and things like that, then you got this camera here. So they're all for different things, and all of you here look in this channel, all of you are really a fan of Micro Four Thirds, and all of you are here listening to this talk here. You would appreciate mobilities and sizes, right? You know, I'm pretty sure this is you know, why you want to listen to it. I know some of you may actually just join and are new to this live stream, and you're coming from a full frame background or from APS-C background, and are also listening about sizing, because I think personally there's no right or wrong answer. You really have to judge it yourself whether you do need you know, the high spec cameras and heavier cameras in your bag, simply because I'm not trying to convey you or trying to convert you into Micro Four Thirds. I'm not trying to do that at all. What I'm trying to do is just trying to show you how free you can be by using a smaller system. And just I know that a lot of you who joined me right at the beginning of this channel as a full frame photographer, and quite frankly, if you look at a lot of my early videos, I have covered some of the Leica reviews, which are full frame cameras. So a lot of you actually kind of follow me from the full frame world into the Micro Four Thirds journey, which is actually quite interesting. And a lot of you actually converted, you know, through my journey, like kind of with me into this journey, which is quite interesting in a way to see that happening. And you all share the same kind of reactions and same passion towards a smaller system by freeing yourself. By when I say freeing yourself, it's not so much just about physical, but emotional as well. It's quite hard to explain when I tell you about emotional attachment to a camera, not just about brand, but like, you know, just the form factor itself. As a guy who worked in the field, you know, I often work if let's say I'm shooting a documentary, if I'm doing something for work, for instance, I usually shoot between 7 to 8 hours non-stop. That is a long time, and you can imagine the physical strain that I would have, you know, with a heavier system. But when I switched to Micro Four Thirds, not just about the size and weight issue here, you know, it's more about the connections with a smaller system. You know, it is quite hard to explain, but once you start using it for an extended period of time, for a longer period, yeah, I'm not just talking about once or twice, but you're starting to use it for a few months, a year, on a daily basis, then you suddenly think that, oh, a smaller system is definitely feels different. You know, and not just about the overall kind of you know, I know Olympus kind of use that slogan there, you know, like free yourself, break free, you know, kind of that slogan there. I mean, I can totally relate to that in a way, because you know, it's not just about the weight and size issues here, but once you have a smaller system, it does make you want to shoot more, and that's what I'm trying to say to you. It's kind of interesting how that will happen, and I know that certain, you know, in some way you can think that, oh, because it's smaller and it's lighter, it's easier to just grab and put in your bag, just go out and shoot. Yes, that is very true, but it is also something about being a photographer and often using different cameras and things like that. And you will, once you have a choice laying on the table, whenever you go out and step out of the door, you will pick one that connects you the most. And for me, it's not just about size and weight, but I always pick up a smaller camera, because, you know, there are things I need. You know, I need not only just about mobility, but also discreet. You know, I like to shoot discreet as well, and also it just the overall. I still can't explain it. Damn it! it's the feeling of it. It's hard to say, you know, explain, you know, as something intangible, especially, and as the emotional attachment, and also the definitely the. I lost words. This is the problem with live stream, yeah, because I don't script this sort of thing, and then I just have to say it out loud, and I always lose words whenever I say this, do this live stream thing. So if you guys can think of a word about what I'm trying to say, please do shout a bit. But anyway, I love it. I love a smaller size, and it's not just about Olympus, not just about Panasonic, but I do love smaller system. And in fact, even when I was in the film era, when I was using film, and I always, the reason why I picked up the rangefinder, the M6 before, and when I was shooting film, I had Canon SLRs, I have Mamiya, I have Hasselblad and Fujifilm 645, I have all those big cameras. I always love using a smaller camera, so I think it's always there. I like something small. I mean, even back then, Olympus has SLR in the OM, so the OM cameras were really fantastic. They were nice and small, but I just prefer the smaller optics from Leica. I know they're expensive, but actually back then they weren't that expensive. They were kind of still okay. They weren't inflated yet. But a lot of the Leica lenses, like the Summicron and 35 f2, they were just tiny, and so I prefer shooting small. Form factor wise, because I get more connected to it, and I can actually be in the scene, feeling more connected with the environment more than anything else. Because once you become a more discreet photographer in the scene, you suddenly become a more connected a person within actually the environment itself. It's quite interesting. Well, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say here, because let's say if I'm doing a documentary, if I'm actually going out to shoot to document an event, if I am holding a big giant camera here, and people would discriminate me, because they see that I'm holding something big, it's intimidating, and they just don't like to see that person holding a camera. They think that you are different, you are something else. It's not in my crowd. But if I'm holding something tiny, yeah, and I just walk up to them, and I don't have a problem actually photographing them up close. And quite often, not just about Olympus, but even when I was in my Leica days, and I could walk up to people like literally in their face, and I can still photograph them, and they'll still be happy and smiling at the camera and let me photograph them. So this is what I'm trying to explain for the last 15 minutes. And it's quite weird I said that, because it's certainly something that you don't understand, perhaps you may not appreciate until you're in the situation. I know shooting landscape, doing travel photography is very different there, because you don't face people a lot, you're just being there. So size, is a secondary thing. You can still hold a big camera without feeling left out, or being isolated from people, or being discriminated by the passers-by. But when you're working with people in a different situation, you know exactly what I mean there. But going back to the sizing upgrade, downgrade, whatever you want to call it these days, I hope that I make the point there. I know it's kind of a bit weird because I'm losing my words there, but downsizing for me, is actually upgrading, myself, because I can now shoot more discreetly, and I can now shoot. I can definitely feel more connected with my work. I can feel more connected with my subjects. I can also feel more connected with the environment. That's for sure. And remember, at the beginning of these videos, and the short film that Olympus made was about about Olympus trying to bring happiness, allowing people to take the camera wherever they want to go and capture those moments, right? I think the whole film, whoever script that is brilliant. I think they totally translated those messages very well, and also making sure that people do what a smaller system mean to a lot of people, and this is what kind of Olympus mission statement right from the beginning. In terms of Matini, who done the OM camera, the film cameras, the whole kind of concept of creating the pen half frame cameras is all about accessibilities and mobilities and all the other stuff there, and trying to let people enjoy photography rather than just being too attached to numbers for specifications and kind of thing, without feeling the emotion attachment to what I just said, basically. Because I know quite a lot of photographers to me, they said, oh yeah, you should get one of those Sony, and they are great. They got this really fantastic AF this and that. And but I always tell them that, you know, all I need is just one of these. You know, this is actually not the latest and the greatest either. This is the EM5 Mark II. This is the 2015 camera. This is a 6-year-old camera. I want this more than the Sony A7. It's technologically, yes, this is definitely, like, you know, probably 3-4 leaks about this guy here, but I definitely would prefer to shoot with this than the A7 for many reasons, because I like I said about the connection issues there. I mean, I feel that I can connect to everyone. I can speak on the street, strangers, you know, I don't know them, but I can feel more connected with these people if I want to photograph them with this guy here than the Sony system. And you know, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I don't know why, because I have tried last couple of months, I have tried different cameras. People just let me play with this and send it to me, and I just play with them, but I just didn't quite feel quite connected in many ways. Perhaps it's a new system, new menu, whatever, it doesn't matter, but I simply don't. You know, it's not about branding. It's not like, because I have tried about 3-4 different systems. No, it's not about branding at all. It's still about feeling it, feeling that emotion there, that connections with myself and to whatever I'm gonna photograph. So that's probably it. And so hopefully you guys kind of understand where I'm coming from. I know that it could be very different from people to people and what sort of thing they do and photograph. So if you do have any kind of a story that you want to share with me about using a smaller system, how it kind of liberate you in terms of as a photographer, and how it changes the way you shoot and how it enable you to shoot more, for instance, please do share with me, and because I'll be really happy to read out your comments, and also maybe to elaborate a little bit more from my angle and why I think that I agree with you or disagree, depending on what sort of thing. Like I said, this is a very friendly environment here. You know, like there's no such thing as right or wrong answer here. You may disagree what I said about moving smaller is actually better. You might actually think that whatever I said was rubbish because, you know, I don't feel the connections there. Or you might even think that, yeah, Michael Four Thirds is still crap. It doesn't really matter, you know, and is a way of actually just trying to understand each other as a photographer, as human beings, and how we can connect the world with the camera and through the lenses, and ultimately becoming a photographs that can be shared around the world. So that's it. So thank you very much, and let me just go to your comment sections here and start maybe reading out some of your comments here. Ryan from Brooklyn, New York. Hello, Ryan. How are you? From New York. I miss New York. I do miss New York, and I hope that I can go back one day, very soon, hopefully, and not too in a not too distant future. Because last time when I was in Brooklyn, New York, was about 3 years ago. It was 3 years ago. I loved it. I loved it. Although the week that I went to New York and the time wasn't the best of weather. It was quite cold. It was very damp. It was very wet actually, and I wasn't able to do much. I mean, I did photograph a lot. I did make a video out of it, and but it wasn't, you know, sunny enough for me to kind of enjoy the whole overall buzz of New York and also Brooklyn. You know, and you know, so I have to go back at some point and just to see for myself once again, you know, just experience it. It's just it's a very unique city, and I like it, and do really like it. Claudia from Chile, hello there. Raymond Day from Latvia, how okay, and John from Portsmouth. Portsmouth. Right, okay, let's go with you guys. Oh, and from hello, nice to meet you. Pizza 47 from Ukraine. Hi. Okay, let's go with the first one here. So, Victor, oops. Today received information from service and my Kiev 60 was fixed 6x6 frame, so I'll be able to check the first time the medium format photo myself. For those who haven't shot with medium format cameras, you may be in a little bit of a shock in terms of aesthetic, because medium format has a very different look to other format that you are used to. For instance, and not just about full frame or micro four thirds, but it's the medium format is definitely very, very different there. For a fact that it's because of the focal length, so you got better compression by default. Because standard lens on a micro four, not micro four, but medium format for standard lens is about 85mm. So once you get that, you will know exactly what I mean about format differences in terms of aesthetic. Not about technical issues there. It's just about aesthetic. And because a lot of people obviously, they choose larger format because the inherent shallower depth of field. They say, oh, I prefer the bulkable. I prefer to have this ultra thin depth of field kind of thing. But for people who haven't tried medium format, and I mean proper medium format, then you actually don't know what ultra thin depth of field really is, because you can try one of those Mamiya 80, was it the legendary lens, 80 or 85 millimeter f2 lens. Try that on a proper medium format, yeah, the actual like 6x6 or 6x4, 4x5. Try that on those cameras. You will immediately know exactly what I mean about shallow depth of field there. Those cameras are fantastic in a medium format, and the outcome is really quite stunning. I have to say, nothing you can actually compare to. I know you can use different methods to recreate that kind of look, but it's still different when you're capturing from film, because I'm pretty sure you enjoy it, Victor. So hopefully you can share some result with me later on. Nat, I was shooting at a wedding last weekend, and I can attest the benefit of a physical smaller system. My wrist felt fine after 11 hours of work. Yeah, I mean that is, is kind of, you probably appreciate because you shot wedding, and I mean I did wedding myself. Yeah, working in a long day, and the time when I used to hold my full frame, the Canon with pro lenses, as you can imagine, 24-70 2.8L, 70-200 f 2.8L, 85 1.2L, all these L lenses I had. And seriously, like if you are doing like 11 hours, for instance, and by the end of the day, I can guarantee you're going to have either aching shoulder or aching back. Something will be aching in your body. I can guarantee that. But it never really happened since I moved to Micro Four Third, and it really did liberated me from that, sort of pain issues there. That's a start. But also because of me being less strained and less tired and stressed, I was able to shoot more and also be more creative, because I don't feel the mental strain in my head, like man, it is getting a little bit heavy now, and because usually when I was shooting full frame, and by midday, kind of like, 'cause I start early, so don't forget I have to capture the bride getting ready, for instance, and things like that. So I start early. By midday, if I'm still using the full frame, I will be basically crying out, and I said I need a lunch break, because I do need a lunch break, and not just because I'm hungry, but actually my body needs a rest, so I can put it down, let my shoulder and my wrist rest a little bit before I can continue for the rest of the day. And I never did that with Micro Four Third, and even though in my good old age now, and I'm still able to do that for a full day with the Micro Four Third system. And like I said many times now, in terms of how I shoot, and also in terms of quality of results, for people who are still arguing about these things, about quality issues, is that I'm still doing the same thing as I did with my Canon system, and that's a full frame. I can still achieve very similar, if not identical work, and or even better work in some cases, with my Micro Four Third compared to full frame, because of my needs are different. And so in that case, I totally don't see the negativity towards a Micro Four Third being a system that is not for pro. And I don't think that is a right way to say it, because you haven't been my situation, you haven't been my kind of place. And as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure some of you already know that there are lots of professionals out there using Micro Four Third. They don't need to tell you who they are. They're just making money from Micro Four Third system, and there are plenty of them out there doing such things. And yeah, there may be more photographers out there using full frame. For instance, I'm not arguing that in terms of numbers or populations, but there are definitely pros out there who appreciate and actually use Micro Four Third and swear by, because of what the Micro Four Third system, the platform, can give them. And I'm totally, definitely one of the rare breeds out there. And but I'm smiling every single time after the shoot even, and I'm just happy, I can deliver work, I can get paid, and I'm happy using the system. That's what I'm trying to say. And because of the less strain issue, like I mentioned, you will actually be more creative, because you are not your body is not telling you otherwise, you know. And that's what I always think that way, is that a lot of you, a lot of photographer will feel really tired after a few hours shoot with a bigger system. I mean, if you use even if a Micro Four Third, if you use a larger lens, for instance, you will probably find that you get tired as well, you know. And so even Micro Four Third can get tired, you know. Don't get me wrong, Micro Four Third can make you feel tired as well if you use it, like let's say the 150 to 400, you know, the pro lens, or even the 100 to 400 pro lens is still a relatively heavy beast, right? You know, if you mount it on the EM1X, for instance, let's say if you hand hold it for three hours, you know, you definitely will feel the strain, right, in your body and things like that. And that's why people still use monopods, rigs and things like that, just to help you out in those situations. Bird photographer, you know, that you can put it on a monopod with a big lens. You can just hold it there for a longer time without straining your wrist on your body. So there are still tools available for doing that. And so, you know, in situations, depending on situation, you still find that going small is definitely more beneficial than going big. Right, let me see David Black here. It will be great to see a new version of Pen F, and this time weather sealed, and maybe the guts from EM1 Mark III, maybe with a dual hinge rescreen. you guys are not giving up on the Pen F2, isn't it? You really trying to like squeeze the Pen F2 from somewhere, you know, like trying to somehow magically squeeze the air and make it happen. I don't know. I mean, I can't say anything about Pen F2. You know, if I know, I'll be quite happy to share, but I don't know anything about Pen F2. I know there are rumors about it, and it would be great. You know, I you know that I am a Pen F fan. You know, I'm the biggest, well, probably one of the biggest fan for Pen F, because it reminds me of the rangefinder that I love, and it's certainly a very different shooting experience because it's rangefinder style. You got the EVF on one side, and the form factor just gorgeous. You know, they're even smaller than the EM5 because the viewfinder, the housing, the prism is no longer on the top of the body; it's been moved to the side. So form factor is even smaller than the EM5 series, so I do like it. I mean, I do hope that, you know, like the OMDS will make one someday, and but I can't say anything on behalf of them because I don't know anything, and if there is any information, I don't think I'm allowed to share anyway because it's not official, and but no, I don't know, but hopefully. And Paul, I do wish people did not use the phrase full frame. It is a misnomer, and surely every digital is full frame. I always call them 35. You are very, very true. You know, I know a couple of people actually mentioned that before. I don't know who actually thought about the terms full frame. I much prefer people actually referring to the older format. And for instance, full frame was 135, right? You know, like we all know 135 or 35mm format. That is a format name. You know, that's the format name, not full frame. What is full frame? I really, so medium format has to be bigger than full frame. You know, that doesn't really make sense, right? You know, if you think about full frame, it's everything, you know, and anything smaller is cropped, and everything bigger is what? Bigger than crop, bigger than it. Yeah, it never makes sense, you know. I'd rather they use the older terms, you know. The 120 was medium format, that is 135 or 35 is the full frame, and then you got the APS-C, which is kind of like the actually they do have APS-C, the APS cameras, right? The remote APS cameras, and then they have the 110, you know, the smaller films, which is kind of almost the same size as the Micro Four Third. So they could use numbers, right? I mean, I don't know why they have to use full frame as a term, and it is quite misleading for people who are not brought up with that sort of that sort of knowledge, for instance. So it's something that I think you're quite right there. You know, we should change the way we say about things, but unfortunately I think it's so ingrained into people's brain now. You know, like even manufacturers now think that full frame is a proper name, and yeah, I'm actually curious who on earth originating this term full frame. You know, I want to Google it, but I don't think anyone can tell me who actually think 135 is full frame. You know, this is a puzzle. I mean, if any of you know who actually thought about that name, you know, and actually commercialize it into what we know today as a full frame format, and that will be quite interesting. I want to find out who that person is. Randy, hello there, and just to finish my weekly food run and old folks at the store. Oh, hello, welcome, Randy. Lord Vader, I use Olympus and Micro Four Thirds for 2 reasons. First, size and weight. Second, when I started with digital, the 4/3 system had stabilization, and no one had that at the time. No other system was close. Yeah, I totally get you, and also stabilization is definitely something that we should be proud of as Micro Four Thirds. And even today, that all the other system has some sort of IBIS and a system built into the camera. But I can guarantee that, you know, which I also mentioned before, if you don't trust me, like I said, my friend Matthews also has a Micro Four Thirds channel, not Micro Four Thirds, photography, a camera channel, and it's called the Mirrorless Lesson. He's done tests for all kinds of equipment, from medium format to full frame to APS-C, whatever, you know, that he has everything. And so he done stabilization tests between Micro Four Thirds, and the closest one at the moment is XT4 in terms of stabilization strength. Even he said that, you know, the latest generation of APS-C stabilization is still nowhere near as the Micro Four Thirds stabilization. And you know, he's done side-by-side tests, walking tests, running tests, and it just overall Olympus still feels better in many ways in terms of IBIS, and for both videos and also photos, you know. And regardless what the manufacturer tells you, like, oh, my latest camera has 5.5, 6 stops, 6.5 stops, it's not the case. I mean, the numbers may tell you one thing, but in reality, when you start working with it, you will find that you will be able to shoot a lot longer exposures with Micro Four Thirds than actually full frame cameras or larger format cameras. And you know, you see a lot of vloggers, for instance, if you go to YouTube, just trying to find some, let's say, Sony users, Sony vloggers and Canon vloggers, you'll find that a lot of the run and gun style, you see a lot of wobbly thing that going on, a lot of shakiness, even with the latest IBIS on. I mean, most vloggers will be using the latest A7 or even A9 series, or Canon, in Canon cases, will be the R5 or the RP, and they all have stabilization, but none of them can be as smooth as the Olympus system. And I can even compare it with the EM1 Mark II, which is a 4-year-old camera, and even the EM1 Mark II has better looking footage or more stabilized footage than these cameras, and these are latest and the greatest system in the world. And yeah, I think that Micro Four Thirds has done well and all continue to do well with one of the areas is stabilization, and I think that it's going to continue to improve, going to continue to dominate, and because it's physics. It's another thing about physics, people don't appreciate that, but it's about the size of the sensor and how much space inside the camera, allowing the gyro to actually work itself in bigger formats, because they're trying to squeeze the size so much, and it doesn't allow that room for the sensor to actually move. And even if you do need a lot more than the smaller format to be able to achieve similar results with the Micro Four Thirds. So that means, yeah, this is always going to be a little bit better. Right, and net 20 megapixel is also plenty if you mention. Studio with enlarged prints from A0 on even bigger is absolutely fine. Absolutely, you know, we know Joe Elderman from the States, you know, how often did he actually mention about 20 megapixel, he can print big and billboard size, right? It's all about the printing. And also time and time again, I keep saying to people that when you print big, you don't actually look at the picture in nose distance. You know, you don't go up to them and look at look at the prints like that. You can't see anything, right? If you want to see a print big, you have to step back, and by the time you reach about 6-7 feet, can you actually tell the difference? You know, obviously there is still, you know, a limit on how much you can push in terms of pixels and also interpolations and kind of thing. But it is what it is. You know, like you have to step back. You're not actually doing pixel peeping in print. You can't, because there's no pixel for you to peep, and you're actually seeing the printing, and which is a very different thing altogether. For anything big, yeah, you're always going to step back anyway. Like billboard, like printing on a building, for instance, that size of print, you are not going to walk up to it in like watching in like 2 feet distance. not even 7 feet, you probably have to stand 30 feet away to look at the billboard, right? You're not going to go up close. So it's people just don't really appreciate that at all. But having said that, I'm pretty sure you've seen Peter Forsgard's latest videos. Is about the supersized pixel in Photoshop, the latest Lightroom, and was it Lightroom? Photoshop. Yes, that's right. You can actually achieve even higher print, high resolution print virtually by interpolation, some sort of AI text that going on, and to enlarge your print in terms of resolutions. I have personally tried it. It works sometimes, it doesn't work all the time, and I do find that there are some artifacts there once you push it a little bit too far, and so it's okay. I'm pretty sure that the AI tech is definitely coming, just like the AI noise reduction that I told you about from DxO. I think with regard to artificial intelligence in photography editing, it's not going to go away. It's going to continue to improve. It's going to get better, and in that case, I think it's even better case to say that getting a Micro Four Third is actually better for you. Well, let me tell you a little bit why I would think like that. Because first of all, it's price. I know that people can still argue. Like you can get cheaper with you can get cheap stuff now with full frame and APS-C, whatever. I still think system-wise, if you get the whole kit, Micro Four Third is still the cheapest. Okay, that's it. I know people are still going to argue, and I got negative. I got a thumb down last time when I said that sort of thing. No, I still think it's the cheapest, and because I can easily calculate for you for what I would buy. Let's say if I start fresh from a kit point of view, I want to get a whole kit that I would like. I can easily see that the Micro Four kit will be about a third of the price, compared to full frame, for instance, maybe half the cost of APS-C. So it's still value for money. And second, is that with all this AI text coming on, all this brilliant AI stuff, noise reduction, and this supersized resolution thing that they do now in Photoshop, and also Topaz, like gigapixel, right? They have the same thing. And so if you want higher resolution print, that means you don't really necessarily need to have a high megapixel count cameras anymore. And why actually like trying to cock up your system in terms of like filling your hard drive full of high-res images. And don't forget, these high-res images from high megapixel count cameras are like easily 80, 100, 120 meg per photos. They are big files here. And yeah, there has a lot of information, of course, there's a lot of pixels there. But imagine that, like you need a fairly powerful computer to process them. You need a lot of storage to archive them. And if these AI tech really perfecting themselves like over the next 2 or 3 years, you will find that a 20 megapixel can output as an 80 megapixel files, and that means you don't really need a high megapixel count and cameras anymore. And same as noise reduction, like the likes of DxO now, the prime reduction, you can actually denoise a 6400 files and make it look like, and feels like a ISO 400 shot, which is amazing, right? So in that case, do you still need them? Like I said about percentage, right? How many percentage you in your photography that will involve high megapixel counts and also high ISO performance? If your thing is only like, let's say 5%, then that means that it doesn't make sense to go big. You just simply stay with your system, and you have all the editing tools as and when you need them, and that's even better, right? This is on demand, because like, oh, I really love this photo, I really want to print them big. Okay, that's it. Just chuck it in Photoshop now, just enlarge it, or Topaz, gigapixel, whatever. Just boost it up, and so it can print big without losing anything, and even enhances it. And oh, I need to shoot a concert, but it only goes once, once in a blue moon. So I go to this concert, just take some snaps there. Oh, I have to push the 6400 ISO, whatever, and always get noisy. But if you find a few photos that you like, oh, chuck it to DxO and just denoise them. They come out like a clean photo. So this is about needs, right? And so for the majority of the time, you'll probably find that this is perfectly okay, and you find there will be occasion that 1 or 2 photos that you really want to treasure and maybe archive it, go big, whatever, then you process those photos accordingly, And that means you now have a choice to do that. So I think technology is definitely improving. So not necessarily from the camera's point of view, but also editing. For people who are thinking about big numbers, like I know Peter did some crazy stuff because he's upsizing a high res shot on top of the super pixels thing on Photoshop, and to make it like what I can't remember the exact numbers, are really high numbers, but for how often do people would need those pixels, right? Like I said, people might be happy to spend like 10 grand on a Fuji GFX 100, for 100 megapixel file cameras, but do you actually use those hundreds of megapixel on a daily basis? To go out and do some snapshots around your neighborhood, do some street photography in 100 megapixel all the time. I don't think that my heart can take it, in 100. And if every file that I click is going to be 120 meg, and when I chuck it in the computer, like I will be dying, and my computer will be screaming, the fan will be kicking non-stop because of this high demand of the files there. So I don't need them, and to be quite frank, what Nat was saying, 20 megapixel is more than enough for wedding shots and in the pro environment, for instance. Because they don't really need that. For instance, I print 10 by 14 albums for my clients, and 10 by 14 is not small. They're fairly big. So the images coming from the 20 megapixel file is more than sufficient. I sometimes even crop and they still come out nice, and so it's perfectly okay. Yeah, Marsha just echo what I said about Joe Elderman there, about the immense size print from Olympus. Yeah, he did something. I remember he was in this photography show in the States, and exhibition. He showed the print sizes that he printed from an Olympus 20 megapixel camera. He even demonstrated some of the 16 megapixel cameras from the olden times, and he still managed to print relatively large. And I really remember that. Years ago, when I went to Leica in Leica Mayfair in the UK, in London, I remember I met the Leica photographer Brett, and he demonstrated to me the 24 megapixel Leica M, not 20, 19 megapixel, 19 megapixel M9. Yeah, that's what he was demonstrating to me, an M9 with a Summicron 35 f2. And he was printing an A0 print, A0, and so he was printing that in front of me. So he printed that, show it to me, and I was admiring the photograph. He said, "Ooh, that looks nice. There's a lot of details there." But it just shows, right? For people who think that, for A0, A0 size, A1 sizes, I need to have 40, 50, 60 megapixel. Because by default, if you look at pixel to pixel, in terms of inches wise, because a lot for printings, you need 300 dpi, for instance, if you calculate that, and 20 megapixel camera in terms of pixel to pixel printing wise, you probably can print about A3, kind of at max, if you just look at pixels. But in reality, it's way more than that, because in printing, you're not looking to the definitive dot on the paper. And also depending on the medium that you're printing on, matte paper would resolve with different details to a gloss paper, for instance. So it's a lot of things to take into considerations. And also, like I said, you are not studying the print in pixel terms. There's nothing like that. So for those photographers who really print themselves, and you will find that you don't need anything like that. Even if you do, yes, there are now ways to do it via Photoshop, super megapixel size, whatever they call it now these days. So I don't see that, as an issue anymore. And so that is totally utter nonsense for people who say that, I need, that megapixels to print big. How big are you printing? That will be something that I usually ask them. And it's, I print A3 sizes. Yeah. You know what my answer would be. Okay, Brana. Oh, hello. Let's see here. Leon, why people on these live chat are mostly oriented for Micro Four Thirds smaller sensors, and they not getting satisfaction at their own brand YouTubers that cater for bigger sensors shooters? Oh well, okay, and no, nothing. You know, it's just we have a community here, which is because I'm quite heavy Micro Four Thirds base, and that's why a lot of people here are obviously already using the system and appreciating what it is. But like I said, this is an open community. This is an open channel here. Even though that I shoot Micro Four Thirds, and everyone is welcome here. So if you want to listen to what I had to say about the system and the platform. More specifically about the platform, the Micro Four Thirds platform, and that you're very welcome to listen and can contribute, because at the end of the day, every platform has its own strengths and weaknesses, and I think that we all deserve a place in this industry, and so it's quite obviously when you come to a heavy Micro Four Thirds channel here, and there will be a lot of people who will be talking about Micro Four Thirds stuff, but I see that a lot of full frame guys are also looking at going small, even within their own full frame stuff. Like Sony just released the 3 prime lenses that are quite small, and the 2.8 or 2.4 lenses, I can't remember now, and so they're quite small by default. So yeah, I mean, it is happening. Like the manufacturers are realizing that there is a niche for a need for a smaller format and form factor for a type of photography, simply because they do liberate you as a photographer. You can go out and shoot more and feel more connected, like I mentioned earlier, with something intangible, but it's definitely there. And hello Marcus, and off topic, where would there be a L plate that will work on EM5 Mark II and EM1 Mark III with the battery for the AC port? Yeah, this one here. Oh no, this is this is for EM, this is for the EM1 Mark. This is for EM1X. I don't have it. The 3-legged thing, Ellie, small, I think that works for the EM5, and because this is one that's too big. You can see this is EM5 here. This is definitely way too big here. You can see the size of it. So yeah, the Ellie is quite small, which fits quite nicely. It has a hole and like a C-ring here, and allow you to basically connect to the AC port and all the other stuff there. You check that out, and you can also email 3-legged thing, and they're quite happy to actually tell you whether it's compatible or not. But I'm pretty sure it does, because I use it on my EM5. So you will see some of the videos I actually use the L plate for the EM5 Mark III. That's what I've been using. Okay, hope that it's okay. Right, for me, the relatively small size and weight as well as quality is important. And try going on wildlife photo walk with a Canon or Nikon 1000 telephoto, never mind the cost. Yep, I agree with you, because I have another friend of mine who's a Nikon shooter. He's you may have heard of his name actually. He's Tom Mason. So he also has a channel on YouTube. He often demonstrate his wildlife kits, because he's a professional wildlife photographer. So he's used a lot of 600mm lens and full frame. Yet they are like a bazooka. They're just huge, humongous things. And I can't see myself doing that. Like I said, I mean, of course I want that Olympus 150 to 400 Pro lens. I mean, that's still my dream lens. I want to have it. But even that in a Micro Four Thirds term is quite big, but it's still comparatively tiny, to a 600mm full frame tele lens, for instance. And so I think that it will be quite difficult for me to go back to a larger format, simply because it would be unwise, from my body's point of view. I don't think that I'm strong enough to actually continue using these larger and heavier kits for an extended period of photo shoots, and even filming these days, because I film a lot. And imagine holding the whole entire rig with all these full frame cameras and lenses and the follow focus monitors and whatnot and everything onto it. It's gonna be like a by the time I finish that rig, it will be like 10 kilo. Imagine that. I don't think I will be able to do that anymore. And so having said that, and I have something very exciting coming my way that I cannot wait to show you. And I don't want to leak too much at the moment, but you're one of the first people to hear that. because I have some fast lenses coming for Micro Four Third. Yeah, very fast, and I'm excited. I'm very excited. You just have to stay tuned for it. I'm not leaking too much. I'm super excited about it, and I'm really hoping to see it performs. And don't forget, you know, I've tested a lot of the 0.95 lenses, remember? And in this channel, I've done the Metacon, the 17.95. I've done the Camlan 51.1. I've done a lot of fast lenses review on this channel, and most of them usually don't give me an optimal result at shooting wide open. And quite often I have to stop down to f2, 2.8 before I can get anything decent. I mean, even though that you shoot 0.95 or 1.1 for that look, but not necessarily that it gives you the crisp, you know, and also the most sharpest image, and so to speak. So like, not like the Olympus Pro lenses, like the 1.2 Pro, you know, they are fantastic shooting wide open, you know, but I'm talking about like even faster lenses, and most of them usually fail at the sort of things. But the lenses is coming my way. It's different, apparently, and it does come at the cost too. So I cannot wait to really show you guys what these lenses are and how capable they are. That's what they told me anyway. And so until I test it myself, I wouldn't know. But in time, you know exactly what they are, and then you may be as excited as I am, because I'm certainly very, very excited. And if it does deliver what they promised me, I'm getting them. Okay, right, and let's continue here. And Jeff, hello there. And Ray for USA, hello there. And Koshai, hello. Hi there. Do you know these guys? Who? Their prices are. Oh, I'm not entirely. Is that spelling error? I don't recognize that name at all. But anyway, it's just safe to buy from them. Brand new E1 Mark II plus the 12 to 40 Pro for $999. A name that I don't associate it with, and usually they are not official Olympus reseller, and that could possibly mean that they are grey imports. And at that sort of prices, I'm pretty sure they are grey imports. I mean, to be honest, if they deliver the goods, and then it's legit, you know. And but grey import also means a couple of things. First of all, you probably won't get any official support from Olympus UK, and warranty issue can be a problem. Even although a lot of these websites, they will offer their own warranty, for instance. So if anything, you probably can't go to Olympus. You have to go through them, and so you just have to check their reputation there, Google the reviews on the seller to see whether this company is okay to deal with. And so I'm not entirely sure. You know, something like this is good. I mean, it saves a lot of money, that's for sure. I have bought something from grey imports before, and did save me money. And but obviously, ever since I turned pro, and I just buy from official sources simply because I need that official support. If anything goes wrong, anything at all, I could easily just pick up a telephone, send them an email, and just mail out the kit and get them repaired and come back, and very, very quickly and professionally. So I'd rather do that than doing that. But for amateurs, for other people who may not need the kit done the official ways, and you know, some of this grey import can be an alternative, simply because the cost saving there is quite significant, and that means that you potentially, if anything does go wrong, you are less likely to get hurt that much. And then so you can either get it replaced if they offer warranty, or you can just get another one, for instance. So yeah, it's the choice is yours, of course. And so you have to just weigh out that risk factor there to see whether you wanted to go for grey imports or you just go for the official channel. And Michael, with the current boom globally for gravel adventure type cycling, OM Digital has a huge opportunity to capitalize on the market. Now develop the app and integrate with the Strava. You know what? Olympus used to make these kind of GoPro type cameras, and it's not the TG, yeah. It's another tough cameras that they have. It's kind of like almost like that Sony action camera. You know, it's kind of vertical. It's got a little tiny flip out screen, which is actually pretty cool. Shoots 4K as well, and it does link to another app on the phone, not OI Share. It's called the OI Track app, which does link to other things. So, but they discontinued that camera, unfortunately, because of the low sales number apparently, and so they basically completely ignore that market now. So, but I can see what you're saying here. You know, potentially there's a good market there, and but I'm not entirely sure for those people who go cycling and adventure kind of thing. You know, you probably want a tough kind of recording device, you know, something like for instance, Insta360, the GoPro, the Osmo Action. These sort of, they probably would prefer these sort of camera, don't they? You know, because it's just less of a hassle. Everything's taken care of in the camera, like the stabilization is just kind of sick. You know, it's all digital, but then it does work. And I know IBIS is great on the Olympus camera, but it's very different when you like mount it on a bike or things like that. Unless you are actually talking about vlogging and proper filming, for instance. And yeah, I could see that. But when you talk about integration to Strava and Wahoo and Garmin and things like that, you are more talking about like technical data integrations there. And in that case, I don't think they would go down that route for a proper camera. Maybe the upcoming TG series and the tough cameras, if they incorporate this sort of thing, may be useful for a lot of people. So, well, we shall see. But I think it's quite interesting thought, though. You know, thanks, Michael. And something that I'll probably feed that back to them, see whether it's something that they're thinking about. I'm not entirely sure. Nicola, I got the EM10 Mark III half a year ago, and the infamous 45 prime. 16 megapixel was enough, and it was a light. It was so light that it allowed me to take more pictures. I think quantity of photos lead to quality. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, you got a very lightweight combo there, and this is also a combo that I use a lot in the past. But like these days, when I go out a job, I usually take my 17. That's my kind of my go-to lens now. But 45 is gorgeous. And speaking of 45, another video is coming up very soon about this range, and you should look out for that. I'm just editing that right now. It's not coming out this Sunday. It's actually for next Sunday. So stay tuned for my next week's video, because it's going to be very interesting, and you shall see. Also, it's a new lens, so yes, and give you another kind of heads up about what my coming video is. See, coming to my live stream is good. You always get to know what I'm doing actually for the next few weeks. So to give you a little trailer of some sort, you know, to kind of expect what sort of content you'll be looking forward to. Although having said that, I've got more back reviews coming up, because I still got a whole bunch of stuff lying around here which I need to do. But I hope you like all the back videos I've done so far, because they are, you know, I'm trying to build up a library here, and also give people who may be looking to buy maybe a new camera bags and things like that, because I know that we all talk about lenses and cameras a lot, but you know, don't forget that, you know, you need something to store them as well, and it's all accessories, and which I don't find a lot of channels out there actually have like a concentrated kind of information anywhere online. There isn't any that kind of focus on any of these areas. You know, there will be photographers and YouTubers maybe getting one or two of these here and there, just because they bought them. They just review them for their own sake, but not that I don't see a lot of people actually reviewing a whole range of carrying solutions, a whole range of lights, a whole range of tripods and things like that. I don't see that anymore. So like, I'm hoping that I can change that, and that hopefully that will give people more information about certain products, and that will be quite cool, not only just for me but for everybody else as well, because I like to you know, support the industries, not just about lenses and things. Like I said, if you need to use a monopod to support your heavy lens, you need a monopod, right? If you need a tripod to do astrophotography, you need a tripod. There's no getting away with it. But what tripod, you know, you might be asking. And so I'm hoping that these sort of videos will help you that. And if you're going on a trip, what would be a good weather seal bag that you want to get for your next trip? Although it's still probably some way away, but hopefully travel is going to return, and that means that you'll be looking at bags very soon. Okay, let's see. David, what about a new updated Olympus Air? Oh, the Olympus Air. How many of you actually remember Olympus Air? I am actually quite intrigued by that, especially the was it Air 01 or Air 02? I can't remember. The one that you can change lenses. I actually want to get hold of one because it's actually fantastic. I want to get one, but I can't find them anymore. I really can't. And even on eBay, I don't see them selling anymore, and which is quite frustrating because I do want to get one just as a collection. But I think it's a very cool idea. Maybe because you think about that, these Air units, you can kind of like stretch out and mount it to your smartphone and things like that. It's actually pretty cool, and you can link it to your app and use the app as the medium, to control the actual module itself for focusing and all the other stuff. Yeah, I would like to see Olympus redo the Air because the Air is actually quite interesting. Kaylin, I'm very inspired by your work, thank you, and you have been a really logical, and I'm a budding newbie. Can you please elaborate the difference between OM DM10 versus Lumix GX85? People say Lumix is a better true. Okay, right. It's really, really difficult to compare cameras like this, and also if you look online, just by looking at the specification comparison, like, oh, you got two columns there, you just look at individual specification, they don't tell you much at the end of the day, and you really, really need to, if you have the opportunity, try the cameras on your hand. That's the best way to determine which way is the best for you. My experience that these two cameras are very capable. I don't see one is better than the other. However, ergonomically, I personally would prefer the EM10, which I have it right here. The EM10 ergonomic is actually better than the GX85, but that's only me because I have touched the GX85. I just prefer the overall feel, the overall grip and everything like that on the EM10 than the GX85. In terms of focusing, you can argue the Lumix 85 technology-wise probably just ever so slightly faster. I'm not sure what version you talk about the EM10, but the EM10 Mark IV AF is actually as quick as the GX85. The EM10 Mark III may not be as quick compared to GX85, so you just have to, because I don't know which version you're talking about, but the Mark IV is definitely on par with the 85, and all the other stuff, it just really depends. But I would say that the EM10 is more graphical, so it's easier to understand, especially if you are a newbie, and because the menu system is actually quite easy. You can go to the AP mode, you can go to the all the other automatic modes there that will tell you exactly what you can actually learn and grow with the system. But that's only my personal suggestions there, and you can definitely view best to try the two cameras side by side, and then you can get the gist of it and see how everything works better for you. And then you can make a decision whether you want to go for the Lumix route or the Olympus route, and that would be my advice. I wouldn't want to discount anything else because everybody's requirements is different, and so yeah, best to try it yourself. George, hello there, and have you seen Robin Wong's video this morning about the Olympus Air? And if they upgrade the Wi-Fi Bluetooth connection software, I think it is very, very promising. Oh, I think we just talked about Air, isn't it? No, I have not seen Robin's videos, and I know the Olympus Air. I personally wanted to get one way back, but I never had a chance to do it. So I would be curious to find out about more the Air. Like I said, it's a very cool concept. It's very similar to a lot of even the Alice cameras I told you guys previously, which is kind of essentially the kind of similar thing. They have a attachment to your smartphone, use the smartphone as the medium to control everything. However, obviously Alice is a very different beast altogether. It's AI driven tech, purely for content creators, not for photographers. But the Olympus Air is more for photographers than the video side. So yeah, it's a very different things altogether. But it still has an old tech on the Olympus Air because the contrast detect AF is not very fast, and it's still got the older sensors and also and whatnot. So it really depends on what sort of thing they can do with it. If they do update it in the future, be it the Air 2, whatever, and that will be quite interesting to see that coming up. Oh, Vicky's in the house. Oh, wow. Vicky, haven't seen you for ages. Hope you're well. And that's good to see you. Let's bring you up. Hi. And it's great, always great to see you. Okay, even at the airport, if I travel without the G9 and my G9, I don't have to take my camera out to the bag. Is that so? Right, I don't know you have to take the camera out. I've never really take the camera out, and although having said that, because every time I travel with my cameras, I usually carry a lot of stuff for my shoot. So I will have the camera, maybe 2 cameras, bodies, and a whole bunch of lenses and all the other accessories you can imagine, full of them in the back. And they usually stop me. Every time I go through the airport, they stop me, and then they will have to ask me to open your bag, open your bag. What is this? What is this? And I want to show you this. They hate this. The airport hates this. They really do hate this. I'm not joking. Every time they see this on the X-ray, they say, "What is this?" I said, "It's a rocket blower." They really hate these things. I don't know. I said, like, I need to clean my camera with these things, and yeah, it's just a blower. It just blow air to get rid of the dust. Have you not seen one of these before? I'm pretty sure you have. Gosh, man, I don't know why they don't like this sort of thing, and it's just every single time. Right. Oh, hello, Peter. Peter Koltoff. Hello there. Oh, Vicky here, you have a comment. I use the A7 II with small lenses and exactly the same size as the Panasonic GX9. I use different cameras for different jobs, and to be honest, I mostly use the Graphy 6000. Yeah, well, there's no A7 II with the small prime. It is quite small. I mean, I give you that, and then and even that GX9 is actually quite chunky, to be quite honest. But you know, when you look at the size of these, of course, this is smaller. Go back to Olympus, Vicky. And yeah, but you know, it's preferences, like I said. You know, if you find that it's okay and suitable for you, there's no disagreement there saying that, you know, your one is worse than anybody else. But I do, you know, about today's topic about downsizing, is that you totally agree with that. From that note, you know, from coming from a bigger zoom lenses going to smaller prime is probably a beneficial thing to do, just because you can shoot with smaller things and probably more liberating to do so. Okay, let's go with V. Also, glass makes such a big difference in my opinion, and not only is nice glass nice no matter what the system, but also Micro Four Thirds glass is lighter and can carry more all day. Yes, you are very true as well. I know that the Sony may just disagree. You know, they just announced their latest lenses, and they're supposedly a lot smaller and a lot lighter at was it 100 something gram? I can't remember, 160, 170 grams, something like that. But you still can't beat something like this, can you? This is the 17 1.8 prime. This is really a fantastic metal lens here, and which is I totally adore. And also this thing costs what, £300, something like that. The new Sony lens costs £700. So people always say that, yeah, I can get this cheaper with full frame. No, it's still quite expensive if you actually think about it, and because you can get high quality primes on a Micro Four Thirds system for half the price at least, and like the, you know, the 17 and 12 millimeter, for instance, and also the 45 1.8, you know, that is a cheapo thing, equivalent on the Panasonic side. You can see the prices as well, so it is quite different, you know, and it isn't really, I'm not saying like which one is better, you know, not technically, but I'm just talking about price wise, because people always argue with me about prices, and but no, you know, look at just latest Sony prices, you can see that they're not cheap at all. They're quite expensive, even though they're cheap by their own standard. Imagine if you buy a Sony G Master, like the latest 51.2 G Master, that is what, $2.5 grand for a 51.2. Yeah, you know, you can get a 25 1.2 for $1,000 for Micro Four Thirds. I know it's a different lens, but it is doing the same job for 1.2 aperture, and so I mean, I can get it for $1,000, which is what, probably just just over a third of the price of the 50 G Master. So yeah, it is it is what it is, man. I don't want to try to debate about what prices, when what is cheaper, what is more expensive. But you do the math yourself. You know exactly what I'm coming from, and yeah, it's hard to try to justify it, and I don't want to justify it because otherwise we'll be getting into this endless debate with no result or no ending to it. Yes, the 150 to 400 1.25 TC with the M1X makes my arms ache and not so easy to hold steady on the 500mm. Yeah, I mean, for people who never really shoot that long before, and you will actually find it quite difficult to do so. Even I don't have the long lens. Even with my 40 to 150, if I chuck in a 2x converter, so essentially turning into 300, and even at 300, I find myself, because I'm not an experienced bird photographer, so even I find that a little bit tricky to do bird in flight because I'm not used to the very narrow angle of views, and so you're almost like pinpointing. Imagine you have a 500, yeah, your angle of view will be so narrow, it's almost like a pin in the sky. So it's very, very difficult to actually trace the bird or when it's flying. So you have to have the skills and experience to do it. And that's exactly another point about photography is you have to know exactly what you're doing. You know, you can get whatever you can afford, you know, true, you can get the latest and the greatest and all these massive lenses and things, but if you don't know how to exploit it, you can never take a good shot from it. And so, you know, as much as I want the lens, I know I need to practice a lot before I can really appreciate and really exploit the capability of the lens, because a lot of the cases, a lot of the times when I see people posting pictures and complaining about the performance of a lens, is that I see a lot of them are user errors. Most of them are user errors. You know, they don't have the enough shutter speed to compensate the actual movement. Even they say, oh, I can shoot my 12 to 100 with 4-second shot, 4-second exposure. You can't do that with a long lens. Definitely not. You know, there's still a rule applies to shutter speed, regardless. You know, regardless how good your stabilization is, you still need a faster shutter speed if you have a very long focal length lens. And but people don't get that. You know, they think that if I can shoot 4-second handhold shot with a 12 to 100, that means I can do 4-second with my 300 f4 Pro. No, that isn't it. You know, if you think that way, you're totally misunderstanding everything in photography. So you need to go back and try to find how you use the lens properly, and then before you can come back. Because a lot of these photos I see online, they say, oh, it's not sharp. When I look closer, they are movement. They're movement either by the subject or the movement of your camera. So it's you can easily tell they're blur and not actually out of focus or anything like that. So many people just don't know the gear well enough, and when they first take a couple of shots, they complain straight away. And but like anything else, you know, I would just tell people, just trying to learn more about the gear, maybe just shoot more before you start complaining. Because I know it's easy to complain when you receive a brand new lens, right? You know, oh, it's not sharp, but think about it first. You know, have you used it wrongly, or have you done anything that causing that results, you know, that you don't want? So yeah, you find that most cases it will rectify itself after you use it for like a week or two, you know, continuously, that you find yourself improving it, and then that way that you see that, oh, okay, I didn't use it properly in the first place, so that's what caused it. So there you go. But yeah, anyway, sorry, a bit sidetracking a little bit, but yeah, it's gonna be a little bit heavy to hold with that lens setup, especially if you start going with the 2x converter with 2000 equivalent focal length. That would be insane. That is. Sure, I never liked the terminology. We have digital about 20 years, and the vast majority of people shooting today have never shot film. But we are using this medium format for reference. Yes. Oh, right. Okay. You still talk about the full frame thing. I think that's the earlier comment there. Yeah. I know. I mean, it just shows how old I am. You know, I'm coming from a film era. It just sounded like I'm a dinosaur of some sort. Yeah. A lot of the, you know, young generation photographers who's born from the 90s, and they probably wouldn't even know what film photography is. They probably even know film speed, film grains, and they don't know any of that. They just expect everything is supposed to be clean. Everything is supposed to be sharp, whatever, like that. I actually sometimes think that the digital images are just way too clinical, and doesn't have that organic feel to it. And that's exactly why a lot of Hollywood studio, when they even though they shoot in digital, they still have to put film grains onto the actual footage, because that will give you more organic, true to life feel to it, in a way that's more cinematic, and rather than just pure ones and zero, give you that ultra sharp, almost like animations, like computer generated graphics, because they're so sharp and clean. And but they don't like that, because human eyes just don't see things like that, and we don't see these ultra fine details that you see on the high megapixel count cameras or video footage. Our human brain don't process like this, so we need something more organic. And that's why I think, in a way, that I prefer Olympus cameras and lenses, because the rendering does give me that organic feel. And so it's kind of somehow Olympus managed to make the lens rendering closer to film, in a way, not via colors, but via the actual aesthetic of the photographs, how the lens draws the photos, which is interesting. And because I see a lot of the modern lenses, they are too modern. They are just maybe I'm just old. I know some photographers may actually find it better for them, but for me, I actually think that they are just way too sharp, way too rigid. That may be the word. Everything just doesn't feel right to me when I see those photographs. I mean, they're nice, they're sharp, they're contrasty, they have a lot of resolutions, a lot of details, but it's just somehow doesn't look right to me. I mean, I see a lot of really nice images from Sony, for instance. I keep using Sony because everybody's talking about Sony these days, but I do see a lot of the G Master lenses, when they are the photographs, they're really nice, they're gorgeous, they're nice, but again, they just don't give me that organic look to it. And Canon's a little bit better. Canon lenses are a little bit better in a way that they do come out a bit better. Perhaps the colors, well, Canon colors are also kind of in combination of two things, and just make the whole image kind of look more pleasing. And but Olympus lenses had that organic look, which I always say in my reviews. I always say that Olympus Pro lenses, especially the 17, 25, and the 45 1.2 Pros, the feather bokeh really does help the overall aesthetic of the photographs, and I do prefer that more than other lenses, which I did the 42.5 Nauticron compared to the 45 1.2 Pro lens video way back, and people still obviously there are split opinions there. Some people say, oh, Nauticron is better, and some people saying the 45 1.2 was better, but I said it at the end of the video, saying that my conclusion was they're both great lenses, but it just depending on what you prefer. Like the Nauticron is clearly looks sharper, but the 45 1.2 is sharp as well, but just sharp in a different way. So it just depending on how you what you prefer in terms of the overall look of it. There's no right or wrong here. I know people prefer Nauticron. Tracy has a Nauticron. I don't. I have the 45 1.2, and I prefer the 41 1.2 for that very reason, the organic look and feel of it. So yeah, it just really depends. But they are all great lenses. They're all great lenses. In terms of fees and ego, those 35mm sensors and makes them arrogant. Oh dear. Yeah, perhaps I would try not to get involved in the with the 35mm group, and even though I came from that group, and but it just it's hard. I mean, they don't necessarily understand or even appreciate what I'm saying, and until they try the camera. And I have to say that that's sometimes when they hold my cameras, they try a couple of shots and say, "Ooh, that feels good. That feels good." I mean, I have done it before. I take it to some photographers meet, and I went up there, and most of them are using Nikon, Canon, whatnot, everything else, Fuji's there, and when they hold my cameras and take a few shots, they say, "Ooh, yeah, that feels good." Yeah, See, this is something that that's exactly what I said. You know, they said the same thing. They said it feels good, but they can't really explain it. I mean, like I said, I was trying to express myself earlier, but I couldn't express it. It just feels good. It's really weird. You know, like, you know, maybe Olympus has put some magic dust onto the body. You know, when you touch it, it's just like, oh, it feels good. Must be some magic there, you know, something that Olympus didn't tell us, you know. They just sprinkle all over the lens and the bodies, and then when you touch it, it's just like, oh yeah, it feels good. That's the only thing I could say. It feels good, right? Okay, let's see. Scooter Photography has a great video where they get big prints from 5D Mark IV and EM1 Mark III, and they cannot. Oh yeah, I know Scooter Photography. I know the guy, and we met a couple of years back. And a great friend of mine, actually. I'm trying to bring him maybe to the channel one day, and just to maybe have a live stream together and talk about things in photography. That would be quite cool, right? And yeah, I saw that video. It's really, really well done, and he took it to the printer. Even the professional printer could not differentiate between the two files. And I remember in the video that he actually asked the printer, this printer, I'm talking about, this is a professional guy who prints photo for the clients. So he's seen files from medium formats, all kinds of from all kinds of platforms, different professionals, and print them for the clients. So he could not see the difference, and he could not. Even I remember that he asked the printer, say, "Oh, can you guess which print is from what camera?" He got it all wrong, almost. I think it's one correct. I can't remember now. But yeah, he couldn't tell. Basically, at the end of the day, he couldn't tell which one is which. And he's printing big. He's printing A0 or A1 size prints. It's really large prints. So you see what I mean? You see what I mean now? You know, in terms of printability, there isn't much difference, and you are not going to get much advantage when you're using a 40 megapixel files, for instance. There may be if you want to shoot 8K, you know, because you do need that for 8K resolutions, but for most photographers out there, I think having a higher megapixel cameras, not necessarily Micro Four Thirds, but any other platforms, having a high megapixel cameras, it could be a burden simply because, you know, like I said earlier, you're going to use up a lot of your storage. You're going to use up your SD card, your memory card way quicker than anything else. And you need more storage. You need more powerful computer to process your photos in batches. For me, it just doesn't make sense for me because you know, exactly what your point is. I mean, I can still print big for my clients, you know, for album, for canvases. There is no problem of using a 20 megapixel file. I know for a fact that Olympus is going to have a new sensor next year or later this year, and have potentially have a high megapixel sensor. But for me, I mean, I'll take it. You know, don't get me wrong. I'll take the high megapixel count, but I don't need it because I just think that what I have now for 20 megapixel is perfectly okay. Having bigger means that I have to stress my system just a little bit more just to get through the workflow, for instance. And but ultimately, if you're just gonna share it on your Instagram, I just don't see that you have you are kind of wasting the actual performance from the camera. It's just way too much there. D-Diver there, and I use the Ollie EM1 Mark III at 40 to 150 for astrophotography. The light and weight is easy on the gear for sky tracker. Oh yeah, that could be another point as well about accessories, right? And some accessories are probably perform better with a lighter kit and than the heavier ones. And similarly for gimbals, I don't know how many of you actually film, because I use and test a lot of gimbals, and I do often find that using my EM5 Mark III, for instance, because it's got great AF now, so I can use it. I can rely on the AF for once on the smaller camera. EM5 Mark III mounted on any gimbal give me the smoothest results ever. You know, like no matter how good your gimbal is, yeah, just similar in your sky tracker. It's got motors everywhere. It's got gyro sensors and things. When your actual system is lighter, it put less strain onto the entire system, and that means that it's much easier for the gimbal to counter any potential movements, and so that it's always easier for and better for higher performances as a result, because when you use a lighter system, similar in the reason why Formula One car is lighter than than anything else, because you get better performance to weight ratio, right? It's kind of like that. You just overall you're just more agile, more things. It's just gonna give you better results overall. So I think in that case, it definitely makes sense. And like I said, my gimbal, it definitely works a lot better with a lighter system. If I change the camera as an EM1X, for instance, and not only the whole thing is obviously heavier, but I do think even though the EM1X has better IBIS, I could turn the IBIS on even on the gimbal, and I still think the EM5 Mark III combo with the big gimbal give me the smoothest results. Not necessarily the fastest autofocus, because the EM5 Mark III can't compare with the EM1X or the EM1 Mark III in terms of AF speed, but then but in terms of smoothness of the actual footage, I mean the EM5 Mark III is by far giving me the smoothest experience ever on the gimbal. I can tell you that. So let's move on. I am still holding out for the G9 will get a handheld high-res mode like the Olympus LED has. I love the EM13 did that. Very cool to show it's possible with no tripod. How many of you use high-res shots? I mean, I do like it, but I don't use it often. Simply because London is not a very still place. Now it is, because nothing is going out. And but yeah, it's often that people there, and when you have people, there's movement, and there's movement, high-res shot doesn't work too well. But overall, it's a very cool way to get higher megapixel. For still photography, it's fantastic. For product photography, for instance, you can get high-res, it's really, really fantastic. And I don't disagree with that at all. Micro Four Thirds is absolutely useless for legacy 35mm film lenses, as I hate modern high glass lenses. I use a lot of classic lenses, so I need all formats, and I use everything from Micro Four Thirds to 6x9 films. You do what you need, Vicky. Yeah, that's also very, very true. Like I said so many times now, depending on what sort of thing it is. And I do agree with you about legacy 35mm lenses on a Micro Four Thirds, because of the actual sensors, not just about sensor size, but the actual pixel size. And because 35mm film aren't designed for this sort of size of lens, size of the sensor, or negatives, so to speak. So you can never get that sort of detail and or the characters straight kind of from shrinking into smaller sensors. It doesn't work like that. I mean, I have trying to attach a lot of the older 35mm lenses onto my Micro Four Thirds, and most of them don't give me the same results, and they just look in a way terrible. And then because they're not sharp, they are flawed in many ways, but they look okay on a full frame or on the film cameras, because it is what it is. The lens is not designed for a smaller format. So even though that I know a lot of people adapt to it and get okay results, but I mean, I've seen a lot of these myself. I've used a lot of this myself, and I can kind of echo what Vicky said there about the older legacy 35mm lenses just may not work too well with modern digital Micro Four Thirds cameras. However, having said that, there are some exceptions there, and like my 85 1.2 FD Canon lens, and that is okay on a Micro Four Thirds. I've tried it a few times and it looks okay, even though it may not be as sharp as the in a full frame equivalent, but it still have that sort of characters. But like I said, like you said, it may not work as well as some other camera lenses. So let's continue. And oh, no, not this one here. Marsha, I knew it when I typed his name and I misspelled. Oh, Elderman. Don't worry, we get you, Marsha. We get you. Okay, let's go into the next one. Lee, Obo missed it. Hope everyone is doing well. Thank you, Lee, for joining us. Thank you. Okay. If you print 300 dpi target, Can you see the difference between 300 dpi and 600 dpi output? In short, no. And but again, it really depends on the size of print, and also what type of print you're going for, and what sort of medium you're printing onto it. Generally, you're probably overdoing it for 600 dpi, and most printers won't require 600 dpi. If you print big, even bigger prints, you actually need less dpi, and so it just really depending on what sort of medium, what sort of sizes you need to print. Like I said, glossy prints and matte prints are totally different as well. So for matte, certainly, if you go for higher DPI, you would not see anything whatsoever. But in most cases, seriously, you set to 300, you'll be more than sufficient. Even if you overdo it at 600, you don't get any benefit whatsoever. So yeah, don't overdo it. Otherwise, your file will be huge if you go for 600 dpi. Imagine that. It's just interpolating a lot of stuff, and then you can get your huge file size that you may not. It may be totally unnecessary. So for printing, I usually go for 300, and usually if you go for a professional printer, they will actually tell you what sort of DPI you need to submit for the printing. Because they have, obviously, when you choose the print size, they will let you know exactly what the settings should be, and then you output the file based on the requirements. Most likely, they will tell you what sort of sizes the crop, what sort of DPI you need to set it to, and what sort of color space you need to set it to, whether it's going to be sRGB or Adobe RGB, because they all have different sort of requirements. Some will be CYMK. They're all different, you know, and just have to see what printer you're going to use. In terms of professional printer, I'm talking about. But most likely, if you're going to home printing, yeah, 300 dpi is definitely sufficient. George is saying a medium format is a fuller frame camera. What about large format camera? Is it gonna be fullest frame camera? That's got a joke. That's got a joke there. Marcus, thanks for the heads up. Ellie gonna look it up. Okay, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, do so. And yeah, like I said, you can email Three Legged Thing. They have a contact page there. Just email them what you need and what sort of thing, because they have a whole bunch of cameras for testing all the L brackets, and they can tell you exactly your based on your requirement. They can tell you exactly whether it works or not. So Three Legged Thing is actually pretty good. They're a good bunch of people there. They're gonna look after you, and just tell them that Jimmy sent you there, and they will look after you. Roger, when Canon announced the 1DS Mark II large and medium format, photographers began to ditch their film cameras for digital. The output from a 16 megapixel sensor was good for better than film. Yeah, but it is true in a way, because I still remember the days when I had the 12 megapixel 5D camera when it first came out. At that time, they even said that film was still better. I remember that there's still an argument of film and digital, and then I said, yeah, the 12 megapixel just doesn't give you that resolution yet. But when the 1DS Mark II came out, the 16 megapixel, they finally claim that they can outperform or outresolve a 35mm film. That's when that people were jumping over to the digital world. It's very, very true. And that says a lot of stuff as well. Yeah. 16 megapixel Canon 1DS Mark II changed the world of photography. Many pros went from film to digital because it finally outperforms or outresolves film, 35mm film. So now we have 20. It's already better than film. So imagine that. Just imagine that. So do we need more? That's one thing. And second thing, are you overdoing it by having anything over 16 megapixel? And that is why Fujifilm and Olympus and Panasonic stuck with 16 megapixel for so long. It is because it is good enough for most people. And then all of a sudden, the camera were gone crazy and starting the megapixel war, and everybody trying to up the numbers by 16, 20 to 24 to 26 to 28 to 30, 35, 40, 50, 60. Now it's 100. And now they obviously the 100 megapixel Fujifilm GFS, and also have high res mode as well, which can give you like what 400, 500. I can't remember now. There's some ridiculous number of pixels. Do you need those files? You know, I think I have more things to do and better to, and times to spend on other things than trying to go through with those files. I know people use them. Don't get me wrong. Like I said so many times, there's no right or wrong answers here. But just me personally, don't need those files. If it's already better than 35mm film with a 16 megapixel sensors, then what on earth do I need a 30 megapixel sensor for? Unless I'm shooting video, which I need 8K whatever, but I'm not at the moment. I'm still shooting 4K. So I don't need it. You know, it's a simple fact, and which is a very good argument there, Roger. So thank you for bringing it up. It is actually an argument I really remember vividly, you know, and back in the days when I was starting to turn pro, and then I just have all this argument there about like 12 megapixel just not good enough, you know, things like that. And but I went with the 12 megapixel because that's what 5D was, you know, it's what gave us, and it was the first affordable full frame cameras at the time, and so it's quite interesting now looking back and thinking about, wow. 16 megapixel was that magic number. Was that magic number that make professional switch from film to digital, because it was better than film. And so now if we look back, you know, it's just, are we actually overdoing ourselves by having more things than necessary, or we simply just get spoiled by technologies and people are just thinking that bigger is better? Interesting thought there. Marcus is trying to guess what my lenses are, and I'm not telling you what it is. I'm not telling you what it is. And these lenses, I have two coming. I think it's two coming my way. Are going to be incredible. I'm not saying too much because I'm excited and I want to find out, because I don't want to disappoint you, you know, because I haven't tried it myself yet. If it does deliver, yeah, then I will basically scream to you guys that go grab one now. Now's the time to get it. But I haven't tried it yet, so I do not want to hype up the expectation when it doesn't deliver. Then I'll be the one to blame. So like, no, don't go too far yet, you know. And but I can tell you that I'm pretty excited when I saw it, and then when they asked me to do something with them, and then I said, okay, I will do it, and I just want to see what it is. I hope they give me a discount after this, you know, seriously, because they're not giving the lens to me. I have to return them, and I know it's fairly dear, so I just want to. I want to ask them for discount if I do want to get one of those, and if it's good, if it's really good, I want to get one of those, and just to see for myself, especially for what I'm doing. Right, leaking too much detail now. I should zip myself now. Tony, my Micro Four Thirds body go on a wrist strap on my, and my D700 goes on a body strap. Enough said. Actually, it's true. I use wrist strap a lot now, especially on my Pen F, and I love it because I just always dangle in my hand. It's so much quicker and so much easier than a kind of body strap. Very good way to saying it. Marsha, can you write in the chat the name of the L bracket for? Yes, I can. Let me just write it down now. And right, it's three-legged thing. And early, small. They have different sizes, so I'm just write small at the moment, so you see it. And so, Marsha, hopefully you saw that comment there. I just typed it out for you. Okay. Handle1111 say Pen F needs to have a successor. You know what? Yeah, the amount of people who talked about Pen F over the last 2 months on my live stream is incredible, and I keep telling Olympus there. There are a lot of people like Pen F, and but they have done the case studies. Of course, they know exactly what they can do, what they need to do to make money, especially now they have their OMDS now. So I would not stress too much about how important it is for the company to move forward. So it just depends whether they have a case for the Pen F, and I would not discount it at this moment in time. But at the moment, I would not trying to hyped up the rumors, because there is no confirmation. I don't have any details. I don't know whether it's gonna be a successor or not. Yeah, but I mean, coming from a big fan of Pen F, of course, I would like to see one, and so we shall see. We shall see in time. Time will tell. There, Hans, the X105 is the best solution for me. Okay, X105 is a fantastic camera. I was so tempted when the first one came out, the X100, and I never got it. And because when I tried the very first one, I'm talking about the first one, the AF was terribly slow. But I know that since Mark III and Mark IV is improved so much, and so it's still a great camera. Maybe one day I'll get one just to play around with, and but yeah, it is a great camera, I know. Okay. I think some of you are talking about Micro Four Thirds format is doing better in Asia and not so much in the Western world. I think they have a strong market in the Far East, that's for sure. That's been already confirmed, because especially in Japan, they have a very, very dominating domestic market. And in 3-4 years in a row now, the EM10 Mark III and the EM10 Mark II, Mark III was dominating in the last 2 years. Then as of last year, the EM10 Mark III and the Mark IV are dominating the top 3 sections there. So it's really, really strong in terms of sales in the Far East. And I think generally people, maybe because Asian people like myself, who are used to seeing or experience in tight spaces, and also we know the space is premium, and so we treasure smaller things more than anybody else, and not just physically, but also about where you can store them and how you can travel with things lighter and better, that kind of thing. We get the idea more often because we are so used to confined spaces. Like look at the flats and apartments in the Far East are way too small compared to the Western world, and so we appreciate smaller things in a way, and not just about camera, but anything else. Anything smaller is kind of, in a way, is better for us. And but in of course, in the West, they you have a lot of space, to start with, and your roads are a lot wider, your houses are a lot bigger by default, and of course over time technology's moved up. At the moment, the trend at the moment is about bigger things, and so you never know, trends could change in the future. Like anything else, we've gone from, like, the cell phone or mobile phone is gone from big to small to big again and to small again. Like it changes. Just, I think the camera market could see the trend going up and down very similarly, because a lot of people, don't forget, quite a big chunk of the people who buy cameras these days are people who switches a lot, and they do, and they're not the, I wouldn't say brand loyalists, but the people who are just dabbling in technologies, to trying to have some fun with the camera in terms of the features, and they just go, a lot of these are going with the trend, whatever things that they makes them happy, in terms of tech wise. So things could swing back, if Micro Four Thirds or other APS-C or other crop factors, crop sensor and crop format cameras have some sort of standout features that other formats cannot replicate, and then these people would swing back again, because these are the people who kind of go up and down all the times. They change from Fuji to Micro Four Thirds, back to Fuji, and back to full frame, back to Sony, and whatever. You know, they're just going all over the place. And these are the people who buy new cameras every 2 years. There are a whole bunch of these people, I'm pretty sure, but the people who actually stay usually are the one that who finally understand the needs, and like professional like myself, you know, I know exactly what I need for my use, and I just stick with one system. You know, in a way, it's not loyalty, but it's just the needs that I think that a tool fills all those gaps that I need, and also performance wise, you know, it satisfy exactly what I demand the system to do. As simple as that. I don't see anything over than that, and more than that, sorry, and than what I just said there. So let's continue here. If you want accessory video, the Big Head I know Big Head Tackle. I know Big Head. He's an old timer on YouTube channel. I used to watch a lot of his videos, still, and then he's a great guy. I mean, I think he's in Hong Kong now, isn't he? And yeah, he's a great dude, and I actually want to meet him once, but you know, I just haven't really got the time. Maybe I should get in contact with him. Next time I go to Hong Kong, I'll probably meet him. And yeah, he reviewed a lot of stuff before. You know, he had a lot of Fuji, then he had a lot of Leicas, and then he had a lot of different things. And I know I've seen his channel quite often, but it's still, I think that I need to see more specific accessories, you know, that is kind of I don't know, help me out as a pro. So hopefully that will help you out in the futures, in terms of how I see things differently. Because in terms of like carrying solutions, for instance, because we all have different bags for different things, I know that I am probably a bit overdoing it. But for a lot of people, you have smaller bags for, let's say, for day out, just one camera, one lens, but they have a bigger one for travel or trips, and you may have other hard cases if you do need to go for a long haul flight, or if you want to store things into a case, rolling around kind of thing, you know. So I'm hoping to bring you a good variety of things that you can see, and then you can understand a little bit more about different systems and for different usage. So by then you have a more educated decision to make what type of bag or what sort of brand or what sort of sizes you should be looking at, especially you know, coming from, you know, like nowadays, especially like you got different cameras, and some of you guys may not just have Micro Four Thirds, some of you may actually have multiple systems, and that means that you really want to find out exactly what accessory fits best for whatever system you want to carry, or maybe even multiple systems. In that case, that you will have a choice there. COVID has nothing to do with Micro Four Thirds. Only full frame APS-C maybe. The only one around in the next few years. Well, okay, yeah, it's quite funny, that. Robin just put a video on the Olympus Air today. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, someone just mentioned about the Olympus Air. I haven't seen his video yet. I might be watching it later on. Peter, the review for Fujifilm GFX 100S by Crop Gas explains the medium format it is common to photograph at f8 and f16 for enough depth of field, so the light source gets very expensive. Very, 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 very true. For those who don't understand my medium format, because I shot medium format film before, and that is exactly why, you know, when I use medium format film, I used to shoot in the studio, so I can pump a lot of lights into the subject. Right, depth of field. I know people always argue about depth of field, bokeh, shallow depth of field, subject isolation, this and that. When you shoot medium format, I can guarantee you, you know, like you have too much of that. You try to reduce it. Even though you are shooting at f2.8 or f3.5, you still get shallow depth of field because of the characteristic of a larger format. And similar comparison to Micro Four Thirds to full frame, you know, it's the same thing. So the bigger the sensor, the shallower the depth of field. So for many photographers who want to get things in focus, you have to do f8 and f60, which is a very common place. And if you look at the lens design by itself, you also find out a lot of the, for instance, full frame lenses, they stop down to f22, maximum f22. I know there are some lenses that can stop down to f32. For instance, macro lenses can stop down to f32, but medium format or even larger format cameras can stop down to f64. I'm not joking, you can stop down to f64 because they needed the depth of field and to perform, to get things in focus. For instance, if you shoot, depending on the distance, of course, between the lens and the camera, the subject itself, you're quite right there. When you shoot smaller aperture, you know, it's the same calculation. You need a lot of light, whether it's going to be artificial, whether it's going to be natural light. You need a lot of light unless you boost the ISO. But don't forget, medium format cameras, high ISO performance isn't great either. So like, you know, you can't expect a medium format to shoot 12,800 ISO. Not many people use that, and they don't see the need of it because they know people who use medium format cameras are not usually the type of people who need to shoot at high ISO either. So like I said, it's similar to Micro Four Thirds. They all have their special needs and special place. And I mean, I could say that full frame or 135 is the most versatile format you can do, and certainly in terms of ISO performance and things like that. And but equally, if people need more depth of field, and yeah, you either have to stop down in medium format, or you can go smaller format, APS-C or Micro Four Thirds, to get a deeper depth of field by shooting wider aperture. And it is what it is. So it's just depending on your needs ultimately. You know, if you think you need more depth of field, then you know what to do. You know, I don't have to tell you that. You guys are probably educated enough to know exactly what you need in terms of aperture settings. Fee, how cheap they are. You could pick up both GX85 and EM10 and see which you like best. Not quite understand you. I don't know. I mean, like I said, you still haven't told me what kind of generation the EM10 is you're referring to, and the Mark III or Mark IV, even Mark II. Mark II is the cheapest. You can get with the kit lens for quite cheap nowadays, and that probably a bargain, to be quite honest. The EM10 Mark II is actually a fantastic camera there, and I actually personally want to pick out the Mark II, and just because it's probably the last of its breed to have the accessory port by the hot shoe, where you can actually attach the mic and stuff like that. Because from Mark III onward, they get rid of that, and you don't have the option to attach the accessory ports anymore. And even the EPL8, you can still attach the old EVF4, I think it was. I like using the flip out EVF in the I love that type of shooting, like looking down, like a bit like TLRs, and is quite a fun way to shoot with when you're shooting top down at a 90 degree angle with the viewfinder kind of poking upward. I like that, and so unfortunately, you know, they got rid of that, and you can't use external EVF anymore. And I wish there's still a camera in the Olympus lineup that would still allow me to do that, because at the moment, I think if you look around for the entire spectrum from different camera manufacturers, I think only Canon has that option now. And I know Panasonic has the, I think was it GX9, GX8? I can't remember. You can flip the EVF upward. And but if you want to attach something to it, the only camera on the market that allows you to do that is the Canon M6 Mark II. That's currently on sale, so you can actually get that camera and have the vertical EVF attached to it. And I love shooting that way, and it's a very different experience, and I do like the angle and looking at that more so than the actual flip out screen. That's my honest opinion. I like that. That's why I still had the EVF2 Olympus and stuck to my Leica, because I just like that sort of shooting. Rarely get asked to open my camera backpack leaving UK, but often get search leaving another country. Had to open my bag 3 times leaving Egypt. Different custom. When I enter and leave Hong Kong, whenever I go back, I never have to do anything. Seriously, they don't care. And I could carry like absolute tons of stuff in it. They never. It's the UK custom or European countries usually ask me to open my bags all the time, and then to see this thing here. This thing's always causing me problem, but I need it. I needed to blow me the dust out. So yeah, well, anyway, maybe I try to find I do have a smaller one. Look, I have a tiny one here. That's given by per gear. Look at the size of these things. But they may still actually open the case and try to see what this is. I can guarantee that. Every time they see some kind of oval shape, kind of egg shaped thing, they just think that it's something dangerous for some reasons. Right. Are we nearly there? And then we shall wrap up very soon. Okay, let's Olympus need to bring a film advance lever to their camera. I like that idea. I do like the idea because I do like the Epson RS1, which I told you before. That's the digital camera that has a actual manual advance lever to cock the shutter. Amazing, right? You know, I really love that. Why don't camera manufacturers do that sort of thing anymore? Because it's fun, it looks good, it's kind of very nostalgic, but it can be a specialist camera, you know, and that will slow people down in a way, because I think a lot of photographers needs to slow down a lot, you know, and because they shoot too quickly, or because of technological advancements. The CAF, full-time IAF tracking, whatever, you know, like these things you hear these days, AI tracking, CAF, burst rate, pro capture, they are fast shooting things. But so many people just now relying on shooting fast to capture something great, but they're completely ignoring the fact that you need to learn about when to capture the shot. You know, you can just basically hold the shutter button all day long just to capture everything, but then you'll be wasting so much resources. You'll be adding so much time to trying to call your images at the end of the day, and it's just not efficient and just not good at all, because you don't learn the essence of photography, especially in capturing and freezing the moments that you want to do, that you want to capture by anticipation, by planning, by observations, by all these really important ingredients, which also makes photography fun. And then if you've taken that away, what's the fun of that? You know, all you need to do is just basically hold on the camera, just keep pressing shutter, everything, which I see a lot of photographers do. So by having a manual film advance lever, by cocking it, the shutter manually, could really potentially stopping people to do that sort of thing. Because if you do that, you definitely won't have eye tracking. For that, like continuous, and you definitely don't have continuous AF, no burst rate, because you can't do that. Yeah, this is a good idea. I like that. However, having said that, I'm very doubtful anyone would do that nowadays, and which is unfortunate, because I think that, yeah, we need to slow down. Photographers need to slow down. We shoot too quickly these days, and so many people have forgotten the joy of photography, and in a way, they need to definitely need to like the 3 things I just mentioned about anticipation, planning, and observation. They need these 3 things to capture a good moment, and it's something that I think everyone should master. That's for sure. So, what are the chances of the EM5 IV being released in the next year? As you mentioned, new sensor. Oh, you've been listening. So, Stuart, and all I can say is that you have to wait until the new flagship camera come out first before a new EM5 come out. And that's already been clarified by Japan. You know, for any new processor or the new sensor will go to the flagship first, whatever that is, whether it's going to be EM1X Mark II or the EM1 Mark IV. So it really depends which camera they're going to put it into, but it's going to be that first before an EM5. So at the moment, I can't answer any question or speculate anything, but all we know at the moment is that from the interview that's done by Kataoka from Japan, is that we should expect a new camera with the new sensor at the end of this year, if not early at 2022. So this is the timeline that we're looking into. For a new EM5 to sports a new sensor will have to be after that. So from my experience, from my looking at the release timelines, you're definitely not going to have a new camera right after the one another. So like, you're not going to have a EM1 or X or Mark IV come out and then immediately we'll have the EM5 Mark IV. They're going to space it out a little bit. So I don't know. The answer is I don't know. They possibly in 2022, but I don't know whether it's going to be summer, whether it's going to be winter. I'm not entirely sure, but definitely not the beginning, because that will be occupied by the new flagship camera that we're hoping to see next year. So, but I'm excited to see whether the new sensor is going to be, great. Obviously, it's going to be an improvement, but I want to see how much it is improved compared to what we have right now. And still is also saying 12 megapixel is still really good. So also in terms of ISO, as well as keeping the photos clean, 40 megapixel up, you'll notice noise a lot more. Yes, you do. And if you actually blow up the next pixel level, you'll be surprised how much noises this bigger format cameras has. Vicky is going to dinner, which me very soon as well. So thank you, and I see you soon, Vicky. And I know that you're busy, so hopefully you join me for my next chat again. That'll be great. And Carmen, I use Billingham digital bag with EM10 Mark II and with room for a couple of lenses, easy to carry with me. Oh, you are using Billingham. Yes, Carmen, I give you 2 thumbs up straight away because you use Billingham. And no, I have a whole bunch of Billinghams. Yeah, it's great, right? Having a smaller system, you just put in tiny little bag, right? I have a small bag here. This is a Leica bag, and so but it's still Billingham, so it's still a very small bag here, and I have. You can kind of see a lens cap there. I have basically one camera and 2 lenses set up in here. It's actually it's bigger than I need for a Leica system. Even that is quite a small thing. What is that? Oh, it's my metal lens hood. Oh, guys, you haven't seen this before, yeah, have you? Right, this lens hood belongs to a Leica 35 Summilux 35 1.4 Mark 1. This lens cap, you would not believe how much it is. Even secondhand, you can't get it. You can't get this brand new anymore. Have a guess how much it is. You'll be shocked about this Leica stuff. Seriously, they are just ridiculously expensive. And that lens hood, if you manage to find one, not the lens hood, sorry, lens shade, the lens hood is hood, isn't it? Hood, yeah, lens hood, circular metal lens hood. That thing cost from the region, depending on the condition and the shape of it, because a lot of them are bent these days, and that thing would cost from 250 to 600 pounds. That's the cost of a lens. That little thing there. I'm not joking, yeah? I'm not joking. It's crazy. It's really, really crazy. And but you can get replica. You can get replica for a lot cheaper. And but this is original. And so I have the original lens, and this is actually have 2 lenses for it. And then for that particular lens, it's crazy. I got it really cheap back then, because I got it before all the Leica prices got inflated, and which is just crazy stuff. Yeah. Anyway, I'm kind of sidetracked a little bit. Is it possible to change the level of magnification on AMS? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And you can actually change the magnification as you want. So what happens is when you go to magnify, you use the back wheel the back wheel to turn it, you can change the magnification from 1 times up to, all the way up to 10 times. So you can actually change it. Once you select the magnification, every time you bring that up, it will stay at that magnification, whether it's going to be 10 times, 7 times, whatever you set it to. So it's very easy. Once you just turn the dial at the back, and alternatively, you can actually use the touch screen. You'll see the little kind of like a magnifying glass on the right hand side of the screen. You can basically move up and down to select the magnification as well yourself. So it's quite simple. Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. You are a vintage guy, right, Hendo? And Olympus needs to put a split image focusing simulation. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be handy for legacy lenses users. Another fun thing to do. Yes, I think so. I think Fujifilm did that, isn't it? Fujifilm did the hybrid on the X Pro and also the X100 series. Because they have the hybrid viewfinder, the OVF and EVF combined, so they can do that quite easily. Yeah, I think it would be quite fun to have the digital prism split and image for focusing. I think it would be very effective to start with, more than peaking, because I don't know how many of you actually appreciate or use peaking a lot. I mean, I use peaking, but I just don't find it accurate enough. And I often have to magnify and punch in to see the actual focuses and double confirm, because I see that a lot of the time when I do peaking, it just ever so slightly missed a little bit. Even though I have a very clear line there, it still missed a little bit. This is due to 2 factors. I mean, one factor actually is the resolution of the EVF and the back screens. So I presume when we have a high res EVF, that should improve. And because if you use an external monitor attached to the camera, you find that using peaking focus is a lot easier and also more accurate than using the EVF or the built-in back screens. So that's why I use a lot of the external monitor a lot when filming, and because it's just way easier to nail focus using manually. So that's my experience. But yeah, let me know if you guys experience the same thing. John Paul Jones, what a time to be alive. Yeah, what a time to be alive indeed. Right. Oh, Red 35, I did pick up the Panfocal 7 Artisan 18 and it's so fun to use, and all things being equal, and also as sharp as the 12-35 Mark II Panasonic Pancake zoom lens. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for getting the 7 Artisan, even though I don't get any commission. But it is a fun lens, right? It is a fun lens. I do love that little lens there, and it is crazy how fun it is to shoot a panfocal, right? Because there is no focusing needed. You just point and shoot, point and shoot. You see a moment, you snap. You see a moment, you snap. It's really, really fun. And for those people who haven't tried panfocal lens before, yeah, you should try it, because it's just ridiculously addictive. And you just go, it's kind of get something out of your mind straight away. You know, a lot of people always think that, oh, I need to move the focusing point. I need to make sure that it's focused, this and that. I need to do, there's a lot of thinkings. Remember about delays, and this will get rid of that, because as soon as you see something happening, you know, you just basically have the panfocal lens. You just, bam. Oh, yes, that's nice. Yeah. Oh, all instant, no thinking whatsoever. Compose, shoot. Compose, shoot. Especially if you're doing auto ISO or also maybe shooting semi-auto like aperture priority, for instance. Fantastic panfocal fun. You know, if you haven't tried it, it's only about what 50-60 quid. I can't remember now. And then yeah, try it yourself. It's actually very, very interesting lens to play with. Fee, I'm also glad you made a video on it, and I find it helped me get analog emotion on digital. Thank you for shouting out. Yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed that very much. Rick also, Jimmy, you only need 3 megapixel, 1 red, green, 1 sky blue, pink. Plenty, there is plenty. Joseph Ellis review on the GFX 100S mentioned the size of the files could cause him to not be able to catch as many photos in a row as he used to smaller format cameras. Interesting. I haven't checked on him for a while. I mean, I did speak to Joseph last year, and I did know that he was testing the GFX 100S. Well, of course, because it's such a big file, right? You know, all these 100 megapixel files, it's going to be ridiculous. It's a different way of shooting. When you shoot medium format, whether it's film or digital, it's a different way of shooting. So you can't really compare. If you want to shoot fast, you go small. If you want to, you shoot slow, and having the time to process and massage all those little pixels, yeah, go big. And that's the way to do it. Come on to my photography workshop. You have one lens. You'll only be allowed to press the shutter 5 times all day, and you won't be permitted to post-processing. Less is more. Very wise words, Rick. Very wise word. Less is more indeed. Don't overthink yourself, because otherwise you'll miss the moment. And when you miss the moment, you miss it. And that means you can't capture anything. So the best thing is go with your instinct, train you, and just like when you see something, you just know what's, just do it. Just capture it. Please say something occasionally that I can disagree with you. I will think of something, and you would definitely disagree with me. Yes, full frame is everything. Okay, that's joking. Like I said, I don't disagree. I don't discount. I don't discriminate any photographers are photographers. We're all here for some fun with the photographs and your lenses. So that's what it is. Great stuff. I think I'm reaching the end of the comment section. I know I've skipped through quite a few things. So thank you very much for joining me today. And yeah, it's just a bit of fun discussion about downsizing. I know that many of you may not agree, but overall, I just think that I should make a point about what people have said to me and left me messages about sizes, especially, and what I should do as a professional. I should upsize by going bigger, and because I should upgrade myself. But and time again, I just say to them, why do I need to upgrade myself if I already think that I have sufficient stuff for my needs? And so what would the upgrade bring me? That would be my question. If that would it bring me more clients? Would it bring me more money to start with? I just don't think so. I mean, technically, yes, it can give me maybe better files, maybe, more resolutions. But it doesn't bring me more, in a substance, in something that tangible that I could calculate. And as a photographer, I mean, I see a lot of things as an art, which is intangible anyway. So having a higher megapixel count number-wise, which is more tangible, you can calculate, you can see numbers where I can compare them, but they don't make sense to me. And in business terms, it's worse. It doesn't even make sense at all, because for full frame, for things that I need for any professional stuff that I do, I need to pay even more money, while I can't increase my fee to reflect that change, and not instantly anyway, but it doesn't make sense. So in that case, I just don't think that I need to upsize to upgrade, right? It doesn't make sense at all. So for a lot of people, I think downsize is definitely better. And downsize is definitely not downgrading, which is what the title suggests of this live stream, because it liberates you in many ways. It's definitely kinder for your body, kinder for your mind, because you'll be less tired, you'll be able to focus more, you'll be able to shoot more, and then that means that you'll be able to improve yourself as a photographer. So that means it should be better for everybody, right? I know there's a lot of arguments, technical arguments about how much better bigger system is, which if you talk about technically, yes, that might be true, but just think about, as a photographer, how much do you need and how much do you want? And do you want just fun, just want to have some fun with photographs? Do you want to just go and shoot more every single day? Do you want to just enjoy your travel and while you're snapping photos away? do you want any of those? You know, because if you do, and I personally, from my experience, is that having a lighter system, not necessarily Micro Four Thirds, but even APS-C or even full frame with smaller primes, downsizing is actually beneficial. So this is the whole point about today's discussion, and I hope that is something that you take away today is about downsizing. Is, you know, for people who think downsizing is downgrading, is totally nonsense, because you can downsize whatever format you are, you know, and just depending on what sort of lenses you're going to choose, what sort of system, overall system you're going to take away for your shoot, and what sort of thing you do go when you go on holiday. So it's all these things considered together. So thank you very much for joining, and so like I said, everybody's welcome to leave any comment. And next week we're gonna have my very first live critique. Yes, I finally received some images, so I'm going to be doing some live critique. So if you guys want to have your photograph looked at and want to improve, I'm open to do this, and it's really entirely down to you. If you want to submit your photos for me to have a look at, and you want to improve things, and you're very welcome to contact me via any of the social link up here. PM me, email me, whatever you want to do, and I will have a look at your photos, and I will definitely give you some guidance. So hopefully that you will improve your photography accordingly. I'm doing this entirely for free. Some people actually do charge you to do this sort of thing, and but I am just wanting to build this community here, because like I said so many times, I do not discriminate any photographers. I don't discriminate where you come from, what races you are, what gender you are, what age you are, what system you're coming from. I don't really care, because ultimately all I want to see is these images, and that's all I care about. So if you want to improve your photography, you're very welcome to let me know, and I will be trying to help as much as I can. So thank you very much for your help, and thank you very much for support all the ways. And as usual, I will say goodbye now, and I will see you all next time. So until then, I shall see you all very much soon. Very much soon indeed. Bye now.